Good morning, everybody. We'll start with the health and safety announcement. There's no fire alarm drill anticipated today, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit, following the running man signs above the doors, and make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it's safe to return. Toilets are available in the stairwell of the building at each floor landing, and water is available from the water cooler in reception. And finally, please make sure all phones are muted or switched off. So we'll start the meeting. Good morning. I am your chair, Councillor Ollie Davey, and welcome to this Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, the 21st of October 2025. Sitting to my right is the Vice Chair, Councillor Eileen Wragg, and the supporting officers present today are Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager, Damien Hunter, Planning Solicitor, and Wendy Harris, Democratic Services Officer. The presenting officers for today's applications will be Wendy Ormsby and Gareth Stevenson, and also present today is Tom Winters, Senior Economic Development Officer, who will be answering any questions from members on the economic impact relating to the first planning application, 232627 MFUL. The meeting today is being streamed live to the Council's YouTube account, so can I remind all members and officers contributing to the meeting to use a microphone or your comments will not be heard. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members and declarations of interests.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with yourself, Councillor Davey.
Present, and no declarations apart from the fact that we have all been lobbied in respect of the first application on today's agenda, which is 232627 MFUL.
Thank you. Councillor Wragg, Vice Chair. The other side.
Present and similar lobbying on that application.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Bailey.
Morning, Wendy. No declarations apart from what was mentioned by the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Present, Wendy, and no further declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Bloxham.
Present and no further declarations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Bethany Collins.
Present and nothing further to declare. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Councillor Faithful.
Present, no other declarations.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
Councillor Gallo sends his apologies.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Haggerty.
Present and no further declarations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Howell.
Present, and the first application 232627. The applicant is known to me, but nevertheless I'm not worried. And obviously 251487, it is in my ward.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, present, Wendy, no further declarations apart from the one you mentioned.
Thank you. Councillor Levine.
Present, thank you. No, the declarations, I remember to bring some marbles with me today.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I'm present and no further declarations.
Thank you. Non-committee members, do you have any declarations? No. Lovely. Back to you, Chair. Councillor?
Councillor Brown.
Oh, we'll come into the apologies.
Okay. I should have mentioned also that Mr. Sorry, it's been so long, Ed, I can't even remember your name. Mr. Ed Freeman is here to answer any questions on the strategic implications of the first application. Okay. Agenda item 1 is registered speakers. You can find those on page 4 of the agenda. The minutes of the previous meeting, we've detected a slight error in that, so we're not voting on those minutes today. We'll take those at the next meeting. Okay, agenda item 3, apologies.
So we've got 3 apologies, Councillor Colin Brown, Councillor Chamberlain and Councillor Gazzard.
Oh, yeah, Councillor Chapman's here but can't stay for the afternoon. Okay, declarations of interest we've done. Matters of urgency, there are none. Any items to be dealt with after the public have been excluded, there are none of those. So we come to agenda item 7, planning appeal statistics. Those are on pages 9 to 27 of the agenda pack, and we'll have an update from Mrs. Ormsby, Development Manager.
Good morning. So in terms of appeals, there are no decisions in of particular note. Obviously, if you have any questions about the ones listed, please let me know. I would let you know that pending appeals, so appeal 24F0114 and 22F0379 for the NHS drive-through vaccination at Greendale Farm and land north of Unit 4 at Greendale Farm Shop are currently, as of this morning, the public inquiry into those 2 enforcement appeals has started and is taking place in the business centre today because the chamber is otherwise used. But just letting you know, in case anybody has any particular interest, it is scheduled for 4 days, but actually expected that it may only last 2 to 3 days. So that's just starting this morning. And then also just to point out that in terms of pending appeals, the 2 appeals that we have in for battery storage, which I'm just trying to find. Apologies. Yes, yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you. So 240096M full, which was where the council refused planning permission for a battery energy storage system at land south of Hazelhurst, Raymond's Hill, Axminster, and 242067M full, where the council refused planning permission for a battery storage at land to the west of Wareham Road, Scouse Farm, Blackpool Corner. Whilst it's written on your report that they are to be heard by written representations, the Planning Inspectorate have requested that they are dealt with as a combined inquiry. So that is currently how things are anticipated to proceed, just for clarity. So that was all I had on appeals, unless anybody has any questions.
Councillor Barlow, you're going to want to know the numbers, aren't you? No?
No, Chair, I'm not.
Fair enough.
I'm talking about 25/0675, page 9 on my pack, whatever. Hillier, Sidmouth Garage, Connaught Road. This has been going on for some time. I was told by the officer that it was all sorted and it was going through. He also told the agent this, and then apparently he'd left, and then someone else took it over, and then apparently 6 months after the event, suddenly the conservation officer weighed in, and it's now not going through. And he's now appealed on non-determination, and I just wondered why we're at this stage. This may not be the time to ask.
It is one, I think we have discussed this previously, but I would need to look into that and come back to you outside of the meeting on that.
Yes, that's what was said last time. But anyway.
Apologies, I thought I had, but I will do.
Okay, if there's no further questions on appeals, then we will move on to agenda item 8, which is our first planning application. This is 232627 MFUL, land northeast of Parkfield Cottages, Pink House Corner, Limpston, although I think the house isn't pink anymore. Anyway, the name remains. Pages 28 to 65. Mrs. Ormsby's going to present this, and we have a number of speakers on this one who we'll hear from in a moment.
Good morning. So the application we're about to consider is for the construction of a proposed educatering facility, which is a large, principally B8 warehouse unit to be built for Goosemore Limited, together with an associated school, classroom and kitchen, and including some arable land within the site. The site itself, you can see on the Google image in front of you, is it's a 4-hectare area of land, currently arable farmland, which slopes gently to the northwest. In terms of location, so this is the A376, the Exmouth Road, quite a busy road that runs down west of the site, rather, along here. And the application site would be accessed from this C road, which runs between the Exmouth Road and Woodbury Business Park to the east. Over here, you've got the Commando Training Centre to the west, Exton Village sitting up to the northwest. And as you come out of the site, heading to the A376, you have this right turn here, and at this location here, there are bus stops. The site and its setting has a strong rural feel to it, as part of a well-maintained agricultural landscape, contributes positively to the local landscape character at present. This shows some of the policy designations of the site. So that white hatched area is the coastal preservation area. So strategy 44 of the local plan states that development or change of use within the coastal preservation area would not be allowed if it would damage the undeveloped open status of the designated area. So this is the coastal preservation area, and this is the application site here. It also lies within open countryside, where strategy 7 of the local plan applies, where there is a presumption against development that isn't required for the essential purposes of agriculture or forestry, unless there is explicit support for the development from other policies within the development plan. There are 3 Grade 2 listed properties which are referenced in the committee report: Nutwell Lodge, Nutwell Cottages, and North Lodge. You will see in the heritage section of the committee report that there is discussion about how the proposed development would impact on the setting of these listed buildings, and it is concluded that there would be an adverse impact on the heritage setting of those listed buildings through the development of a large industrial building within this field here. So this shows the proposed layout of the site. Access taken, so a new access created into the site from this C road. The main building sited sort of off-centre within the site. you can see that the existing hedgerows and trees will be retained along these two boundaries, and there would be some augmentation through additional planting, and the landscaping proposals do include additional new hedgerows around the north and western boundaries. There is an area of agricultural crops shown as being grown on this part of the site. And down here is a building which is proposed to be used as a school for visiting school children to use as a kitchen and as a classroom. We'll have a little look at the building itself and then just explain a little bit more about the relationship with the agricultural land. So this is the building itself, the main building that's proposed. So this is effectively the B8, so storage distribution building. And it is 82 metres in width across here, 42 metres in depth, and has a height of 7.25 metres. I don't know whether you can read the key there in terms of the materials proposed. I'm not sure I can read them on my screen either, but effectively it is a mixture of timber boarding, and I'm just going to enlarge mine so I can read it a little bit better. So Yorkshire boarding on the walls. The plinth walls is light grey render. The roof is box file corrugated steel roof of light grey colour, goosewing grey. I think those are the main materials that you would see. The roller shutter doors, galvanised steel, also in a light goosewing grey colour. The floor area of the building, if I haven't already mentioned it, is just under 3,045 square metres. And this is the end elevations of the building with timber, the Yorkshire boarding are cladding, and then windows. This end of the building houses a lot of the office facility within. So this is the ground floor area, and as you can see how the building is divided up, there is a area for storing frozen foods, area for chilled foods, ambient foods, for fish, and a butchery area. So in terms of any processing of food on site, the meats that come in, there is a butcher's, so there is actual physical butchering of meat taking place within the building. The remainder of the building is for storage and distribution. And then on the ground floor, you have an area of offices. And then just on the first floor, you can see that there's a second floor with another area of offices. So overall within the site, you've got approximately 2,725 square metres of B8 floor space, about 605 square metres of ancillary office space, an ancillary canteen of about 170 square metres, and then a classroom with a kitchen, which we've got a separate plan of, showing which is of 186 square metres. That's just showing the levels within the site, and this is showing the classroom. So a relatively simple building, which is clad in the Yorkshire boarding and is divided into a classroom capable of taking up to 35 students and a kitchen. So just going back, sorry, I think I went back a little bit to, so in terms of the the use itself, the building is proposed to be used by Goosemore Limited. They currently have a distribution centre at the Dart Business Park, so just south of Dart's Farm, and that's about 3.4 kilometres northwest of the site. They are a food wholesaler who supply various businesses, such as restaurants, for example, but also educational establishments such as schools. And that's the part of their business that they refer to as the educatering aspect, which is catering provision to schools. And there is also a proposal within this expansion of the business, and we mentioned previously the associated agricultural land, which you can see here. What the business wants to do is to offer on the same site an opportunity for school children to come to the site, to see crops being grown on the site, and to then potentially pick some of the vegetables, etc., that are being grown, and then to then go to the classroom to have a lesson about, might include nutrition or menu planning, and to do some classroom cookery. And it has been, when we come on to just talk about site selection, etc., one of the reasons that the applicant has stated that they have struggled to find alternative sites is because they feel that there is a need to have these two parts of the business side by side. This plan here in itself is showing the landscaping. I think I mentioned previously that there will be some proposals to plant some hedgerows and trees around. And obviously that will improve screening of the site to some degree. But obviously the size and the scale of the building is such that it will remain visible even when landscaping is fully matured. This just shows the drainage layout, which is effectively attenuated discharge with an attenuation tank shown underneath the agricultural area. There's no objections on drainage from Devon County Council. So these are some photographs of the site. Unfortunately, Wendy, are you able to turn me off the screen so we can see? Thank you. So you can see where these photographs are taken. This is looking across the site to a copse known as the Break. This is then looking from the eastern corner of the site, looking northwest, and you can see the property Ivy Lee and Ridgeway House, which are two residential properties closest to the site. There is a road between this site and Ivy Lee across the road. That's the road. So you can see on this thing here, that's the road, and these are the two properties, just to give you an idea of proximity. And this is a view from the access for Withy Hayes Farm, looking northwest. The yellow rapeseed here is the application site. So this is looking across over the hedge into the application site here. And obviously, this is the area where you'll be seeing this large 82-metre long industrial building in what is otherwise a very rural, tranquil setting. This is standing at the junction with Nutwell Road and Exmouth Road, looking across to the site. And so the site itself would be here. Again, you would see the building from here. And this is taken from Ivy Lee House. So the site is, the green arrow is just showing it's the back, there's two, that smaller bit of agricultural, the yellow field that you can see just in that area here is So it's taken from here across there. So again, it will be visible in the landscape from that location. This is taken from the other side of the estuary, from Church Road towards the commando centre that you see in the foreground. And I think it is unlikely to be particularly, if at all, visible from across the estuary. And this is a view from the cycle path bridge across the estuary. This is a zoomed photograph, just to be clear. And again, it's not anticipated that there will be particularly notable views of the building from across the estuary. So the key issues, obviously, they're discussed in depth within the officer report. The economic benefits of this application have been considered at great depth. There's comments from our economic development team included within the officer report. The Goosemore Limited are an established, successful business wanting to expand. The understanding is that they will retain their existing premises at the business park, and this will be an additional premises for them. And once fully established, it's anticipated that this new building would create about 100 new time-full jobs. There would be obviously benefits, wider benefits in terms of indirect job provision within the local area. It obviously will, there will be one of the ethos, effectively, of the business is to seek to source their foods locally where possible. And so that obviously means that there is additional economic benefits in terms of purchasing from local businesses, local farmers within the area and within the Southwest generally. So, and the statement that was submitted by the applicant from Turley Economics states that they think there'll be a total GVA impact of about 14.8 million annually across the Southwest region, of which 1.7 million would be in East Devon once fully operational. So clearly there are significant economic benefits that could arise from this development. So the officers, and in fact this scheme was taken to a member advisory panel before the application was submitted. And the location, it's very much the issue of location of where this business is proposed, that officers have been having a lot of dialogue with the applicants about. Obviously the principle of development is something we would want to support and is supported through our local plan policies. The applicants were asked to undertake a sequential approach to look at, are there other sites that this development could go in, because it is effectively in the middle of the countryside, isolated from any other form of built development within a coastal preservation area where policies say that we should not be allowing development that will be visually intrusive. Our landscape officer has assessed this scheme and has come down very clearly that there will be significant landscape harm in terms of visually, the overall character, and matters such as this will be a 24/7 operating business, so there will be the comings and goings, an impact on rural tranquility, which goes beyond just what you see, but also what you hear in terms of comings and goings, additional vehicle movements, etc. So the applicant has undertaken a sequential test, and they've looked within a 12-mile radius of their current site on the basis that they wish to be able to retain existing workforce, etc. But the sites that have been looked at have been limited on the basis that the applicants consider that it is necessary for them to have the associated arable land, the growing land, to provide the association with the ability for school children to visit the site. The officer view is that whilst it might be a nice thing to have, that it hasn't been demonstrated to us that it is a necessary, from a viability perspective, of this maintaining itself as a viable business. The business could carry on without having that ability to have school children visiting in a separate building within the site to pick vegetables, cook, prepare them, that those two elements could be separated out quite satisfactorily, and that most importantly, the key economic benefits of this scheme are not dependent on there being agricultural, that association with the educational aspect of what the business wishes to deliver. And on that basis, as officers, we don't accept the fact that certain other sites have been ruled out of the sequential assessment of what could be a suitable site. The applicants have concluded in there is that they consider there are no other suitable sites, and that's why they have selected this site. As officers, we do not feel that it has been demonstrated that there are not suitable sites. The committee report goes into quite a lot of detail about economic land supply within East Devon, and it is acknowledged that at present there are supply issues, and that is something that does weigh in the planning balance effectively. But overall, again, if the argument was made that there are not existing employment sites, industrial sites, then again, are there better sites that are not in a coastal preservation area, that are not so isolated, that could be in locations where there are already existing buildings, where the character of the area is not so very rural and unspoilt as it is in this area. So, as you can see in the slide before you there, the benefits are the economic benefits are clear, and we accept those, and they do carry significant weight. There's moderate weight given to the educational benefits of the sort of the school building within the site, and that needs to be weighed up against the adverse impacts of the development. So it's contrary to our spatial strategy in the fact that it's developing a large industrial development in the countryside. It will have a harmful impact on the rural landscape character of the area. It undermines the coastal preservation area protection policies. It is also remote from any nearby settlements, meaning that employees will be dependent on private modes of transport. I did point out that there is a bus stop in the vicinity of the site, but there is no, you then got to walk. I mean, that's quite a busy road and there are no pavements, so you're then having to walk effectively around and along the corner to get to the site. So in reality, it's very likely, particularly with the 24/7 means of operating, that employers will be dependent on private modes of transport. It would also result in less than substantial harm to the setting of the 3 identified listed buildings that we looked at in the slides. And the officer view is that the adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and this is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out in the officer report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ormsby. So we'll come on to speakers. You each have 3 minutes, and there are quite a lot of speakers for this, so I would ask you to try and keep to the 3 minutes. You'll get a reminder on the screen of how your time is going, and I will let you know when your 3 minutes is up and ask you to conclude if you haven't already done so. So our first speaker is an objector, Mark Moffat, who can't be here, but Sarah Weatherfield is going to read out a statement on his behalf. So is she here? Yes, please, if you'd come up to the lectern When you're ready to start, press the button that will start the timer.
Where it's got 19, the button.
That's it.
While I acknowledge the potential benefits of allowing children to gain an understanding of food production and showing them how to prepare meals from fresh ingredients, I do not think the benefits from this development are sufficient to justify construction of a large business in the proposed location. Let's not lose sight of the fact that the major part of this application is the distribution of school meals throughout the southwest. With the siting of the classroom at a distance from the main building due to safety concerns, the requirement to have agricultural land immediately adjacent to the main production facility is removed. This leaves children with the experience of being in a classroom, something which all schools already have. This one just happens to be next to a lorry park. Many schools already do grow produce in their own grounds, and DCC and the Devon County Agricultural Association support FarmWise, where schools visit farms to see farm production. DCC also offer a range of resources to further the understanding of food production. The offer from this proposal is not unique. The destruction of agricultural land to provide another resource is not necessary. It is true that we don't want our children to grow up thinking that our food comes from supermarkets, but neither do we want to mislead them into thinking that it's grown on a small allotment immediately adjacent to the factory, which is what they will see. The education aspect of this application is a small addition to the main use and rather conveniently answers the obvious fact that the site is considerably outside the built-up boundary in the middle of Grade 1 agricultural land. They propose to occupy approximately 3 3/4 hectares to allow the growing of plants in just under 1 hectare. If they remove the tunnel vision of requiring a location with on-site growing facilities, more appropriate locations would be available. With 2 large industrial business developments already situated in Woodbury and Woodbury-Salterton with better transport infrastructure to their clients and employees, there is no argument for the need for another. And if this were passed, it would set a precedent for equally large developments on adjoining fields right at the gateway to Lympstone, Woodbury and Exmouth, ruining the visual aspects of these tourist settlements. EDDC policies state that support can only be given if a development is appropriate in size and form to the surrounding area. It is wholly inappropriate for its surroundings. The majority of the company's customers are to the north of their current location, and many are west of the X. Why would they want to move south, further away from the M5, the A30 and the A3052? Their lorries would just spend more time travelling slowly in low gear, increasing fuel consumption and pollution. Those are Mark's words. I would like to add that it would also, the transport 24/7 would create significant disruption to the residents of Pink House Corner, whose windows are approximately 50 centimetres from that junction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Perfect timing. Okay, we now have 3 supporters. Jonathan Bishop, representing the Cornerstone Academy Trust. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and good to be with you today. So I'm Jonathan Bishop. I'm the CEO of Cornerstone Academy Trust. We've got 7 schools within Devon, and we've been working with Goosemore and their educatoring business for several years now. I was fascinated to see the moderate educational benefits. In my experience of working with them, there have been significant educational benefits. Many school children come to school and their only meal of the day is that meal that is cooked at school. And so ensuring that we get the right ingredients, locally sourced, delivered daily, cooked freshly by qualified chefs, served to the table, has made a transformation to the behaviours, the well-being, the mental well-being of the children in our schools. We've been pioneering this idea of family dining. It actually takes people back decades, where we are preparing food, taking it to the table, and older children are serving younger children their meals. It builds that very relational approach to educating children about the purpose of food. They need to understand where it's come from. That's simply more, that is much more than going down to the garden and growing something in the polytunnel. That has a place. We're developing our outdoor spaces. But actually understanding that journey of food from the farmland to the plate, to see the nutritional benefits and to enjoy the social aspects, but also to begin to enjoy learning how to cook, to make those life choices in an age where there are many challenges around food, having enough food, many families still in receipt of food from food banks, the families we're working with. So this daily delivery of great locally sourced, butchered food brought to our schools, working with us to design those really nutritional menus and working with the children to design the right food for them on a daily basis. Feeding that back into the classroom is really key. The Farmwise, we work with them. It's great, it's a great opportunity. But really for one year group, once a year, to visit a farm isn't enough. To be able to go down and to see it being grown, to it being harvested, to go into a kitchen, to see that food production and to see how it's transported, those food miles are really critical. I, from an educational point of view, believe that the work that Educatoring are doing with Goosemore is really impactful on thousands of children's lives. And from an educational perspective, I would recommend it.
Thank you very much. Could you just turn the mic off, or if the next person does? Yeah. We have control, yeah. That wasn't a fire alarm earlier, by the way. I don't know what it was. Was it the doorbell?
No, it's the safety alarm in reception area.
Oh, right.
I think it's being serviced.
Okay, there's some servicing going on. We weren't warned about that. Okay, next we hear from Molly Marlowe, representing Willowbrook Primary School. Hello.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Molly, and up until last year, when I retired, I was head teacher at Willowbrook School in Exeter, and I've been head there for 15 years. And we were the first school to partner with Educatoring. We'd had a number of other suppliers, other people we'd worked with school catering. The food was just inedible. And we started working with Educatoring, and I cannot begin to tell you the difference. You know, they tell you something's too good to be true. Well, it wasn't. For the first time in a long time of teaching, it was as good as they said it would be. And I've seen firsthand how their approach just really transforms children's meals, children's meal times, and their educational life, their life in school and beyond. And when we started working with Educatoring, we were serving about 660 meals a week. And that's in a school of over 400 children, and where we often had 45% free school meals. So these were children who this was their meal, and they were living in poverty. And within a year, probably less than a year, that number had more than doubled to over 1,350 meals a week. And more importantly, food waste really dropped. It reduced by about 75%. And our catering operation stopped being in deficit because, you know, we had more children taking the food, more children eating, and we ended up with a trading surplus of about 8,000. And that meant that we could reinvest in the school, in like fridges, freezers, etc. And we didn't have to use our school's capital budget for that. The real difference wasn't financial. The real difference was in the children. And for many of our children, you know, I did work in a very deprived area, and the school meal was the only hot, nutritious food they get. They look forward to it. They stopped going straight to bin, as we used to call it. And, you know, as they saw it being cooked, they talked to the cooks, the school council was involved with a chef, and it was local ingredients, full of flavour, and they talked about what the different food was. You know, we stopped calling cauliflower white broccoli for a start. And, you know, and that's the level of ignorance you have in children. You could see the change in their energy and their concentration in the afternoon. They weren't hungry after their lunch. They talked about the food, tried new things, and ate together with a sense of community. And that gave them, you know, a lot of cultural capital, social capital, and dignity. And, you know, things that very hard to measure. Staff ate with the children in the dining room. You know, we had a lot of staff choosing to eat the food because it was lovely. And the effect that had on the atmosphere, the dialogue, the language development of the children. And it didn't just stop at lunchtime. We had a holiday club that we ran in conjunction with a local charity, and Educators worked with us with that, and they provided food for that, and that was their commitment to make sure no children goes hungry. And it really, please do believe children do go hungry, because you could see the difference it made. So as a head teacher, I saw the best of what a very simple model could achieve: better nutrition, better learning in the afternoons. Children weren't tired, weren't hungry, and it was a really strong working partnership, and that's what happens when, you know, local people work together to bring around local solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I remember Willowbrook School because I used to visit it as part of my previous job. Yeah, 15 years ago. Okay, and now we hear from Ed Williams, representing Dartmoor Farmers.
Morning, Chair and members. My name is Ed Williams, farmer and director of Dartmoor Farmers Limited. We're an organisation started by King Charles when he was Duke of Cornwall, now Prince William as a major landowner within Dartmoor. We're a co-op of 85 family farms producing beef and lamb from across the whole of Dartmoor. All our stock is born, reared, finished within the Dartmoor National Park boundary, is then slaughtered at Gage's Farm, Ashburton, which is another local business within the National Park. Our partnership with Goosemore and Educators has grown significantly from its first year of just 38 cattle, now to over 300 cattle a year and over 350 lambs. This equates to, well, over three-quarters of £750,000 in our last set of trading accounts. All the stock is processed in Goosemore's own butchery by a specialist team of butchers and packers who ensure that our environmentally produced low food miles product is enjoyed to its full potential. That beef then goes into thousands of healthy school meals for children across the southwest, cooked from scratch in school kitchens, using ingredients prepared and supplied through Goosemore. That makes us incredibly proud. The meat from our farms stays local, feeding children in the same towns and villages where our families live and work. It brings purpose and pride into what we do, because we can personally see the difference it makes. And this partnership is more than about supplying food, it's about education. Our farmers now accept visits to moorland farms, giving pupils a chance to see where the food comes from. They meet the animals, walk the land, and learn about the environment and responsibility behind good food. For many, it's the first time they've stood on a working farm, and even for some, the first time in Wellingtons. Our farms currently welcome around 25 sessions a year. These are all funding dependent. Trying to get a coach to the middle of Dartmoor is not easy, and it's not cheap. Educating's new facility, school kitchens and classrooms, are helping to close the loop between the field and the classroom and the plate. That's real food education, connecting children with the land, the people who produce the food, and the values of care, sustainability, and community. This model shows what happens when farmers and producers and educators work together and are all passionate in what they believe. It keeps values here in Devon, strengthens the rural community, and supports sustainable farming for the next generation. Knowing that the beef we produce is providing thousands of nutritious meals to local school children makes that work even more rewarding than it was before. When Devon's farmers are feeding Devon's children, and everyone benefits. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. That's great. I was going to ask you just to wind up. You have. Thank you. Okay, next we'll hear from Woodbury Parish Council, Councillor Susan Francis. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so there's somebody from Woodbury Parish Council then, yes. No, that's the order you're in. Sorry, I thought, yeah. I see now. You're both here. Thank you.
Morning, Chairman and Councillors. Before I begin, Woodbury Parish Council would like to thank East Devon District Council, Devon County Council and everyone else that is involved in the wonderful annual Farmwise event at West Point and others alike. It's events like this which truly showcase the best of our community. The fact at this event each year over 1,600 of our primary school children get to learn about farming from gate to plate with all the interactive zones is invaluable. It's a shining example of how to engage with agriculture and our rural identity in a positive education and sustainable way. And while we all support educating children, and as mentioned, the likes of Farmwise already exist, for schools to visit this proposed site, we must ask at what cost. The very schools this venture claims to support cannot afford visits at a reported £30 to £50 per child. In a cost of living crisis, this immediately excludes the most disadvantaged children and schools, turning a claimed public benefit into a privilege for the few. It is precisely because we value this community, its landscape and its future so deeply, we must stand today and wholeheartedly support the officer's recommendation to refuse this application. The officer's report lays out undeniably planning harms and crystal clarity. This development is a clear and unjustified departure from East Devon's local plan. It would cause significant irreversible harm to our cherished landscape and agricultural lands, a blot on the landscape that will be detrimental to tourism, which is the other key sector of our area. It erodes the openness of the coastal conservation area and be a harm to the setting of our precious Grade 2 listed buildings. These are not all minor concerns, they are the very foundations of the policies designed to protect our parish's character. Furthermore, when we look at this proposal, serious questions remain unanswered that go to the very heart of its credibility. It appears to be a convenient land deal and we cannot ascertain how the company can fund it. This financial vagueness presents an unacceptable risk to our community. This applicant claims other sites are not viable, yet has provided no financial evidence to demonstrate this. From our local knowledge, we know that some key landowners have not even been approached. And what of the 100 promised jobs? How many will be genuine new positions for local people? And how many just staff relocated from Darts Farm site? Relocated jobs are not a new wealth for our community. Furthermore, the location with already strained infrastructure is unviable and unsustainable. A 24-hour industrial operation with overnight HGVs is completely at odds with a tranquil countryside conflicting strategy 7. With no footpaths on these dangerous lanes, it forces total car dependency, directly contravening the sustainable transport aims of strategy 5B and policy 2C2. Finally, all these serious questions remain. This isn't about being resistant to a good business. It's about the location and protecting what we have. The harms significantly outweigh the benefits. This location is just not suitable. We have a duty to be the stewards of this parish, and we must stand and protect our landscape and not be left with a damaged one. We hope this committee supports their officer's recommendation and their local plan and refuses this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, my voice, I've got a bit of a dry voice. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, so now we'll hear from Councillor Susan Francis. Sorry about the confusion there, from Lympstone Parish Council.
Good morning. As one of our residents observed, it's quite ironic that a development that purports to show children where their food comes from actually removes land for producing food. This development scheme is submitted based around an educational opportunity. The educational opportunity has weak credentials in our opinion, and we suggest the Devon County Council initiative of FarmWise is an alternative appropriate way to demonstrate farm to fork and does not take away food producing land and countryside. This plan, in our view, is predominantly for a food distribution centre. The case and justification for placing it on this particular site is not made in our view. There can be no advantages that outweigh and justify the negative effects of placing it in a protected landscape, and as such, the plan is completely unacceptable. The site was included in the HELA process for the new local plan as LP Wood 43, but was quickly rejected as totally inappropriate. Consequently, this plan is contrary to the current and next local plan. Your report states and others clearly state the significant planning policies and strategies it contravenes. Policy 5, Strategy 7, you get the drift. If developed as the contravened policies and strategies illustrate, there would be considerable landscape and visual impacts and completely out of character for the area. This site is in the coastal preservation area, which is designed to retain the visual impact of land. If developed, the loss of the visual impact of this protected space would be irreparable and unforgivable, especially important as tourism forms an important part of our local economy. There are historic considerations with the proximity of the Nutwell buildings. There are amenity considerations of noise and disturbance, in addition to the light pollution that no amount of shading and measures could mitigate. Sustainable public transport is not an option for early shift workers. There are no footpaths to the bus stops for workers or visiting school parties. Inclusion of space to store workers' bicycles does not mean they can cycle to and from work safely. Logically and inevitably, if this development progresses, there will be increased traffic, including HGVs, which would place additional strain on the already overcapacity A376. Potential impacts of drainage, flooding and pollution concerns place unacceptable risk to the sensitive estuary. The mitigations in the East Devon District Council Ecologist report of more than 1,300 words highlights the tremendous damage and loss this proposal would have to the biodiversity of the area. Again, unacceptable and unforgivable. There are multiple planning reasons against having this business here. We believe the harm it would cause far outweigh any advantages it has. Alternative sites for a distribution centre and field to fork opportunities exist. This is a protected landscape. The plan is not right or acceptable for this location, and we hope you agree with the committee's report and refuse it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll hear from Jamie Walsh, who's going to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Chair, members. Every single day, tens of thousands of children across the southwest sit down to eat a meal cooked from scratch in their own school kitchens. Fresh, nutritious, and made with ingredients grown, raised and prepared right here in Devon. For many children, that meal is the best and sometimes the only hot, healthy food they'll eat all day. And when that meal is great, everything else works better for the child. Teachers tell us concentration improves, behaviour improves, and children are calmer, happier, and ready to learn. That's the power of the region's great food, used with care and with purpose. Goosemore began in East Devon, a small family business that's been here and growing since 1957. From those local roots came educatoring just 4 years ago. It has grown from 4 schools in 2021 to more than 145 today. It's now recognised as the first model of its kind, bringing restaurant quality, locally sourced food to plates of the pupils we serve. Our school cooks are empowered to cook from scratch, creating meals packed with nutritionally rich, local ingredients, real food, prepared, butchered, and supplied by our network of Devon farmers and producers. Everything we do supports senior school leaders, school kitchens, and the people that work within them. There is no factory cooking, just a quiet, clean butchery, storage, distribution, logistics, training and education facility that helps schools deliver great meals every day. Importantly, the site will also include a learning space and large growing area where pupils can see how food is produced and use the experience to understand how it connects with what's on their plates through cooking. It's a model built on partnership, education, and community. At the heart of the project are local jobs for local people, more than 250 in total. These include the vital warehouse and distribution teams that keep our schools supplied, but it's also the skilled butchers, Michelin star chefs, account managers who work directly with schools, sustainability leads, technical experts, logistics specialists, and senior management roles too. Together, they form a mix of high quality, high value, and secure careers, the kind of employment that keeps talent in East Devon and creates opportunity for the next generation. The new site has been carefully designed for the long term. It will not expand or sprawl. It's a single, purpose-built home that sits quietly and cleanly in the landscape. But without it, we can't keep growing here. If the application is refused, we'll have no choice but to relocate outside of East Devon. And that would mean losing a thriving, homegrown success story and almost certainly some of our local trained and valued employees. What we're offering is simple but powerful. Better food, better learning, better futures for children, powered by local people, local businesses, and local produce. This is East Devon's success story, a cutting-edge, groundbreaking business model rooted here, reaching nationally, and proving that when we feed children well and work together, our great food and our great region can do great things. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll hear from the ward members. Councillor Jeff Young, and you both have 5 minutes. You'll be delighted to know.
Good morning, committee, and thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. Both parishes in my ward have voiced their strong objection to this application, along with many residents. It's against the local plan, the emerging local plan, Woodbury neighbourhood plan that is emerging, and the villages plan. What's the point of developing plans, having them approved by government inspectors, and then ignore them? If the policies say it's a red card, then it is, no question. My fellow district councillor disagrees with me. Plus, he disagrees with the planning officers and local residents. As the representative of this ward, I strongly support the parish and local people whose views actually comply to the key planning reasons. So why does my fellow ward councillor believe this agricultural field in this coastal preservation area is appropriate for this business venture? He says he wants to provide balance. He says that this council in the last 10 years has failed to identify or provide employment land within this ward. Absolute nonsense. There are 2 major employment sites, numerous other smaller businesses, and the marine camp, all providing far more employment than the actual working residents in this ward. He says this will redress the balance following the inclusion of further housing development. Sorry, I disagree. This ward needs better transport links to the existing skilled employment opportunities that the wider Exeter job market offers. Officers have explained in the report that there is sufficient employment land, and therefore it is not a reason to ignore our or national policy. So no, I do not agree that there is a lack of ward employment. He explains this will provide jobs for villagers, and this would assist in our efforts on climate crisis, reducing commuting traffic. Actually, there is no bus service from the ward villages to this location. No pavement, and the roads are definitely not bike friendly. The only bus is the Exeter to Exmouth bus that stops on the main road, as you've already heard. So no, you cannot use climate change benefits to justify this. He says this business has a successful history of 65 years, originating from a farm on Topsham Flats. This does not justify the need to move to an agricultural field in a protected landscape location. Regarding the educatering issue and providing balanced quality meals that are financially beneficial for the schools. My memories of burnt custard, semolina that looked like frog spawn, and meat that when dropped cracked the concrete floor are memories I would never forget. However, providing improved services and cost benefits to schools are not a planning reason and not to overturn policy. Finally, covering my portfolio, I'm concerned with the in-house sewage treatment plant with its runoff directly along what is actually a field ditch watercourse that dries up in the summer. This little trickle is not sufficient to take treated sewage flows into the estuary. We want less contaminated water, not more. Goosemore is a great business, and I would normally support their business expansions. It's a great credit to how a farm diversification has grown and now needs to find an alternative location. But this protected landscape is unfortunately clearly not the right location. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Councillor Ben Ingham to respond. Ben.
Basics, sorry. I'm absolutely delighted that this application has come forward because I really did want a balanced report. And I think you've got it. However one-sided our officer's delivery was, and it was, I thought you heard enough from the floor chair to say, oh, there is a bigger picture. And I ask you to consider that. And I'd ask you also to invite the Economic Development Officer, Tom Winter, to speak at some stage and to give his view of this application. We know that the emerging East Devon local plan proposes the allocation of an extra 400 houses within this ward, but no extra employment land. Our planning manager actually mentioned that there were employment land issues. The issue is they've hardly got any. How many have they delivered in Lympstone ward over the decades? I think you can guess the answer. So, if there's no extra employment land, and you may hear people say, but there's Goodmoors, which was allocated in the last East Devon local plan, that's as good as it gets within Lympstone, and that's to serve Exmouth. So if we've got, and I work it out at being already allocated about 205 homes in Lympstone, 185 plus in Woodbury, so that's 400 houses, say 1.5 people per adults per house, 600 people, say 400 of them are pensioners, 200 jobs required. 200 jobs required. And you don't want them to commute. We should be providing access to jobs close to where people live. It was interesting, wasn't it, when we had a look at the coastal preservation area through those photographs. You're supposed to say that if you stand in the middle of the estuary, can you see those fields? Any fields or whatever that you can see should be in the coastal preservation area. The ones you can't see shouldn't. Now, I know it's demarked as coastal preservation area, but if you're over the other side of the estuary and you can't get the angle right to actually see those fields, you've got to question the effect of development in those fields on the actual estuary, which is what it's about. Clear, wasn't it, in comparison to the Marine Commando Training Centre. Listed buildings, I really don't see them as relevant. If it was relevant, why have you let them cut Nutwell Lodge to pieces over the last 20, 30 years? Why have you allowed extensions onto the cottages the other side of the road? And the one that is just is the lodge to Nutwell Court, there's a wall there, so you can't even see it. So I'm sorry, I dismiss that. However, I certainly recognise the profound effect this would have on houses at Parkfield Cottages, and also Pink House Corner, without doubt. And I'd say you've got to weigh that up. Transport. If you've allocated the houses that we have this year in preparation for the emerging local plan, have a look at them. The most distant ones in Lympstone are 1.5 miles away. The nearest one in Lympstone Parish, is under 1 mile away, which you deliberated not so long ago, next to Harefield Cross, Strawberry Hill. And the 185 within Woodbury Parish are all either in less than 1 mile or 1 mile away. Don't tell me you can't walk or cycle to that. You can cycle there within 5 minutes. I overtake going to work a guy who cycles from Exmouth to Greendale. Well, actually, I've stopped passing him in the last month. I think he's bought a car. But I put on the point that don't tell me it's impossible. Okay? It was 4 years ago when we first debated it. Thank you, Chair. I'll wrap up. I see the time. It was 4 years ago that this was mooted. This has been kicked down the road time and time again because they didn't want to take a decision before now with the current emerging plan because they were scared you might pass it. I'll leave it with you to take the decision. Good luck. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Okay, we'll move on then, members, to questions. And I'll remind you, Mr. Freeman is here to answer any questions about the strategic policies in the local plan or any other strategic implications. And we also have Tom Winter, Senior Economic Development Officer, to answer any questions on the economic impacts. Okay, Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of things. First of all, the A376. I went out to have a look at this site. Am I right in thinking there was a pavement along most of the A376 from, certainly from Exton and from Ebb Ford? I've just looked on Google Earth. It certainly looks like there is. I've just driven along it, and it certainly looks like there is a pavement there that goes all the way past the Marine Camp, all the way down into Exton, whatever, which of course is now a sustainable village.
No, there's no pavement there, Ian. There is a small length of pavement around Ebford, but it doesn't continue all the way up to the Marine Camp. There is quite a wide verge, but it's not pavement.
I've just looked at the Google Maps where you can go down the road, and it certainly looks like there's a pavement there. Anyway, other question is to Tom Winters then. Is there a similar size facility available without the agricultural land in the area?
Is anybody able to answer that one?
Sorry, Chair, we have the development officer who's obviously job, I presume it is. Is he not here?
Yes, Economic Development Officer, yes. Tom Winter. Yep.
So if
please,
I could
Tom.
ask him.
Yeah, if you can answer that one.
Well, the short answer is no. I think even if you remove the educating element from the proposal, I'm not aware of any sites which are currently available on the market. Obviously, there's a big difference between something being available in policy terms and then something being available commercially. For the local plan process, I've been in contact with all of the landowners and agents for the new allocations, mixed use and employment. Those, I'd say the majority of them are many years away from being commercially available. So in terms of the economic impact, I'd say that obviously there's going to be significant, I'd say this is probably one of the most important applications from an economic development perspective we've seen for some time. And, you know, we're very good at attracting the sort of national and international businesses at the West End. What we've really struggled to see are those Indigenous businesses, successful businesses that are wanting to grow, sort of holding back growth across the whole district. And just to put it in sort of perspective, I think when this application came in about sort of 2-3 years ago, it was around the time our economic development needs assessment had been published. You know, JLL said quite clearly there that we're in a situation of market failure when it comes to industrial development. They showed that for every square metre of supply, there's 30 square metres of demand chasing it. Obviously, for Goosemore, that chase has lasted 3, almost 4 years now. And, you know, they've conducted in that time 3 sequential tests. And we've not been able to, as I say, identify any site which is available. And again, we would concur with the conclusions of that. And I just point as well to some of the existing employment allocations. For example, you've got the Goodmore's Farm in Exmouth, and you've got Harepath Road in Seaton, both of which currently have applications on at the moment for national retailers rather than industrial uses, which from our perspective is you know, really frustrating. So I should mention that, you know, we're not typically as a team in the habit of supporting employment development in protected areas unless there's a very strong case for it. Obviously, the market failure in itself could be a strong enough case, but there are other considerations as well. I should mention that our economic development strategy is a key strategic document for the council, outlines food and drink as one of our 4 strategic sectors, specifically mentioning specialist workplace provision in there as well. Now, again, I sort of understand the applicant's case in terms of needing to co-locate the 2 uses on the site. That's really important. Obviously, if this isn't approved, they would then need to identify, well, they then have 3 sites, obviously the existing site at Darts Farm, the B8 unit, wherever that goes, and the educatering element. And that would obviously have significant logistical costs. And I know of businesses which have had to leave or grow outside of the district because of similar issues. And that's why I'm really fearful of a sort of flight risk here, because, you know, the question is, is this business going to grow? Is this business going to grow here in East Devon? And we obviously want them to stay here. And obviously, if approved, this development will not only create new jobs, it will protect the jobs that already exist, and of course, protect the farmers who already supply. I hope I've succinctly answered your question there, Councillor Barlow. Thank you.
Thank you very
Well
much.
done, I think, Tom. Yes, thank you.
Could I just come back with one?
Yes.
Thing? And one final thing. Obviously, we have a tilted balance. We want people to be provided houses locally, because at the end of the day, we believe they have a right as people born here or living here to be able to afford a house. So we are building houses everywhere. We're going into fields. Obviously, because of the tilted balance, we can go outside of our normal rules. But there isn't a tilted balance, my understanding is, for businesses. So although the business is here and it's grown here, people rely on it for their work, etc., we don't have a tilted balance for that. We just kick them out. They have no right to stay here like people that live here. Is that correct?
Well, I think I'll hand over to Mr. Freeman on the questions of employment land. Certainly the tilted balance doesn't arise. But I think perhaps it's hardly a question to say they're going to be thrown out. Is that what you were suggesting, that we're throwing a business out?
Well, we are if we can't supply them anywhere to go, surely.
That's alleged by them.
And our development officer. Well, I don't want to debate now, Chair. Sorry, no. I'm just asking questions. I just wanted a yes or no if it's a tilted balance the same for business or housing.
Well, I'll let one of the planning officers answer that, but my understanding would be there's no tilted balance that's applied to business uses.
Through you, Chair, I mean, I think it's actually an interesting point of debate about whether there's a tilted balance in terms of employment land or just housing. It's not explicit in terms of the NPPF, but clearly where there is a lack of supply, you need to give weight to that in your decision making. I think the issue here is we're in an unusual position in that, as you've heard from Tom, there is an issue in terms of supply at the moment, particularly if you take the view that there is a need for this business to have the educational element sat alongside the distribution elements, which is limiting the options available to it. So there's an issue there in terms of how much you're convinced by the argument that those uses need to be sat alongside each other. Then beyond that, there are issues in terms of some of the sites and their availability, their viability to a business like this. And then there's also looking at the future in terms of, we're about to hopefully go out to consultation, final consultation on a new local plan that presents a whole additional range of employment sites that are available. So there are issues in terms of supply, and there are clear economic benefits that weigh in favour of this development. But even if you were to apply a tilted balance, I would suggest this site is not a site you would entertain for housing. For example, if it were a housing site, it's remote from any settlement, it's in a sensitive protected landscape. These are all reasons why it wouldn't be sustainable development, even if you were applying a tilted balance. So the same principle applies, even if you were to apply a tilted balance to employment uses, they should be in sustainable locations, close to existing settlements, close to public transport provision, all of these things which I fear are not applicable in this case, and why we have concerns about it as a sustainable development, even if you give significant weight to the employment benefits and the lack of employment sites.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Peter Faithful. Faithful.
Councillor Faithful and then Councillor Levine, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. First, I would like to clarify Councillor Barlow's comments about pavement. I've just been checking on Google Street Scene, and there's continuous.
Sorry, Peter. Are we still in questions?
I'm still on questions, but I'm following up Councillor Barlow's
that's okay.
question.
I just wanted to check if we'd gone into debate accidentally.
No, not into debate.
You've still got a question. That's fine.
Following up Councillor Barlow's comment, I think the answer was not very accurate. The pavement continues all the way to Nutwell Lodge. From Nutwell Lodge to the turning, there is a grass verge the opposite side of Nutwell Lodge, but from there south, that's when it ends. So there is pavement all the way down to that point or thereabouts. My first question, is there a classroom present, and where is the classroom? Where they're set up at the moment, do they have a classroom set up?
I see what you mean, at the Darts Farm location. Perhaps the applicant could answer that one, yeah, if you'd just come up to the mic. Thank you.
No, that's one of the reasons we're looking at a new site, because if it was a simple case of us moving to an industrial unit, then whether it's in East Devon or elsewhere, that would be a relatively easy find somewhere in Devon. But the reasons we want to push the education piece is because our business is a unique offer, and we're not just an industrial unit that serves goods to schools. That isn't what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you.
Next question. One of the objections was to do with Lympstone Commando Training Centre coming from the Ministry of Defence. Has anything been done in response to the Ministry of Defence objection?
Thank you. Councillor Young, you're able to answer that one, are you?
Yeah, they're quite happy with the application now. The issue was they do yomping from the Marine Camp up to the Common, and they pass this area, and they've now said that they're happy with that issue.
Thank you. Yes, that's right. It's to do with the movement of training troops. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I haven't finished yet.
Yeah, carry on, Peter.
Can we just propose the education building without having, can we like a split decision? So we have just the education part without the warehouse on this site. And also why does the education building have to be on the same site as the warehouse?
I'll ask
So,
Mrs. Ormsby to answer that.
No, we can't split out that part of the development. So what we're here today is to consider the scheme in its entirety. We're unable to issue a split decision. In terms of I mean, obviously you heard the applicant explaining why they feel that it is logistically necessary to have the two together. The officer view is that we can see, whilst it might be convenient for the two to be sited closer on the same site, it's not been, the case has not been put in a way that we sort of accept the fact that the two could not be split out. Yes, there would be potentially, I mean, you sort of, if you're doing the farm to fork, that can be done on the agricultural land and the classroom. The industrial unit is a very separate big commercial enterprise. I believe that there was mention about staff that might be working in the main building that might also be present and involved in the education, and that it's less convenient if they've got to travel a distance. But I think that operationally it's possible for the two to be separate. It's just less convenient for the applicant.
Okay, does that answer all your questions, Peter?
Yeah, I think so for the moment.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the correction on the pavement. I obviously hadn't spotted that. Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if I can ask a question of Tom Winters, because we're talking here about employment, 100 full-time jobs. Are they going to be sufficiently well paid that the employees will be able to afford to live locally?
Obviously, I'm not involved in the salary policy of a particular company, but I have looked at their the economic impact assessment that they've undertaken, and I think the GVA, so the productivity per worker, is about 59,000, I think, in total, which I think is slightly above the district average. Obviously, I can't split that out between different jobs. I don't know that. But that is a sufficiently high level of productivity, especially for a region such as ours, where we are below the national and regional average when it comes to productivity and wages. Another thing I'd highlight as well is our job density ratio. So that's how many jobs there are per resident, which is 0.74, which suggests that more people have to leave the district each day for employment than come in. So that's obviously, many people going to Exeter obviously for higher paid jobs. So where we can attract higher productivity, higher wage jobs within the district, that can only be a good thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think, you see, in my mind, if I look at the sort of things that are going to happen in preparing food, I'm not quite sure that these are highly paid occupations. That's my question.
I think Mrs. Ormsby would like to chip in here.
I think just to make it clear in terms of what actually happens on the site. So whilst the meat is prepared insofar as it's butchered on site, nothing is cooked on site. It is effectively ingredients assembled together that are delivered uncooked, but sort of to provide for a specific menu to the schools. The schools cook the food on site. So that's why it is effectively a B8 storage and distribution is the primary. It's effectively a large food warehouse where food is put together to a particular menu and delivered to the schools.
Okay, thank you.
The agent's got his hand up. I don't know if you don't call him usually only for questions.
Okay. Councillor Ingham from outside committee, did you have a question?
It was in response to the question about the Royal Marine Commando Training Centre. And yes, they've withdrawn the thing. It was this committee chair who a few years ago approved an application immediately opposite the Marine camp for a football golf thing. So saying that that's okay and no objection, but something a mile away would have been a bit rich. So I understand why that was withdrawn. Thank you.
Right. Well, that wasn't a question, was it?
You allowed Councillor Young to answer. That was my answer.
Okay, righto. Okay, I still wouldn't quite say it was an answer, but Councillor Young did say that the Marines had withdrawn their objection anyway. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not predetermined by any means, but the more I hear, the less. Yes, but my question is, this is going to be a refrigerated unit and a freezer unit. Now, these things in the day, you hardly hear them because of all the noise around you. But in the night, this noise from these units is going to travel a considerable distance. And it's going to be exceptionally loud to the residents of Pink House Corner and the cottages. So I wonder if anything could be done, if it was to go ahead, to keep the noise down, because you can't turn these things off. They've got to run 24/7. And that is going to be a great concern to the residents.
Okay. I don't know if we've had anything about noise mitigation in the application, but I don't think there's been anything from environmental health on noise impacts. No. The nearest house to that was how far? Well, obviously there's the house directly opposite the Pink House Corner house. Yeah.
I mean, environmental health were consulted and didn't raise any objections in that regard. I mean, obviously they're going to everything. I mean, there will be cooling equipment, etc., which is often outside of buildings. Environmental health haven't objected. It would be possible to apply conditions requiring details of any external ventilation, any external machinery, ventilating machinery, etc., cooling mechanisms. Then obviously part of that would be, you could look at the noise emissions, but the houses are set quite far away from where that building is, and I think it would be unlikely that that particular aspect of the business would cause problems to those dwellings. I mean, the comments that have come from environmental health is about night, because obviously this is a 24-hour operation in terms of HGV movements coming out of the building. I think from 5 a.m. to 1 o'clock is the sort of the busier time. But again, environmental health haven't raised any objections on noise in that regard either.
May I just come back?
Yep.
The HGVs up until 1 o'clock in the morning, they are very, very noisy. And they'll be coming in to deliver late at night. Their fridges will have to keep running because there's possibly they carry 2 or 3 destinations on their truck. And if they've still got a couple of destinations to go, they won't turn their fridge off, it'll ruin whatever's in there. So that's the delivery time late at night is going to be a concern as well. That's the noises of the fridge. Well, I remember when we did something at Greendale from Mercedes-Benz garage, I suggested, and I'm pleased it was taken up, that electric hookups for the trucks that come in, as soon as they go in, they hook up to the electric, and that would cut out their noise. because they're very noisy and that travels a long way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any more questions for any of the officers present? Okay, in that case, we can move into debate. Councillor Smith and Councillor Collins, both at once, but, well, we'll have ladies first, Bethany. Let's go with that. Yeah, it's old-fashioned. No, it's chivalry.
Actually, she had her hand up first. I agree with you, but Bethany had her hand up first.
I didn't expect to be, you know. So I don't think anyone is questioning the value of the educatoring scheme, and I don't think that, I mean, I've worked in education, I've seen firsthand the effect that children coming into schools on empty bellies has on their attitude, their engagement with learning. I don't think anyone's questioning how important it is for them to have good, nutritious food, but that's not really a planning consideration that we can be looking at today. And I'm not discrediting that or the credibility of those moors at all. I'm just, we have to look at sort of what we've got in front of us in terms of policy and the policies that we have to follow. And I would tend to agree with the officer's report that there doesn't appear to be any policy support for this, particularly in its location. So I want to listen to sort of the rest of the debate, but I would be inclined to agree with the officer's report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith, Simon.
Yeah, very much in the same vein. It's been amazing actually to hear about all the positive impact Goosemore has had in its relationships with both the schools and the farm. It really is, as an educationalist as well, I really value those relationships and the social impact it's having, because that can't be ever underestimated. But this isn't the right site for it. This is, in my opinion, it's when looking at this and hearing all the comments, it's just not the right site. We've actually, this committee looked at, within the last year, it had a classroom it approved on a farm, just to prove that there are the mechanisms in which the learning can take place on a farm. And it's good to see that all these farm visits are already taking place and learning is taking place, and actually getting children outside the classroom is really valuable, and having space for children to cook and prepare is also really good. And we see in our towns already in East Devon how several community organisations like Project Food are already doing that in kitchens as well. So there are the bits that we need for education there, and I think as a planning committee it's our responsibility to make sure that whatever we approve is in the right place and suitable. We do have these natural constraints within our district. We know that at least 2/3 of our whole of our district has planning constraints because of where we are. So that's the nature of the beast. And so I always feel a little bit hesitant when we're held over a barrel in terms of organisations coming to us and say, well, we'll leave the area. Well, if that's the case, I'm sorry, you're not going to force us to do something just because of our constraints, natural constraints. So yes, when the proposal comes forward, I would be a seconder to Bethany's proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And I saw Councillor Haggerty's hand up. Del.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, difference. Disappointed. We see a company here that's from within the district, which 57 is 68 years now, and growing and expanding. Wherever you're going to put this site in East Devon, someone's going to complain. Wherever we go in East Devon, someone's going to complain. Whether you build a shed, 200 houses, a factory, someone's going to complain. What we've got to be careful on is the policies that are preventing us, that may prevent us passing it, are also the same policies that could be used to pass it. If you're going to drive companies out of the district, and I respect what Simon said, I understand that, but we've got to really look at this, what we've got in East Devon. We're actually trying to attract people to come to holiday here, to live here, and to grow their businesses here. And whether this is the right or not right site, I think we should be helping. And I know it's not our position from the council's point of view to say, go to that field, go to that field. But if we're going to approve 1,000 houses, 200 houses, and as we said, they're going to moan wherever you're going to put these things these days, what's going to happen. I think we've got to really look at keeping that industry that comes from East Devon in East Devon. And if we're going to drive that out, and this is not just the business, it goes to the education as well, the way it can be visited. And I think one of our colleagues here this morning said, back at the days of semolina and horrible things for dinner, I can remember those as well, going to school. But I think we've really got to look at this. The plans, I personally think it's a lovely plan. People are going to travel to work. People live in Exeter, people live in Taunton, they come to Devon, they go to Exeter, they go to Exmouth, they travel everywhere. Doesn't matter whether they go on a bike, electric car, a train or horse, it really doesn't matter as long as they go to work to earn a living. And if we're going to stop these things growing in East Devon, then we are going to put a noose around our own necks. I actually like the plan. I would be personally in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggerty. I do have to point out that the objections have come from the officers, yes, from parish councils, but the reason for refusal is not based on the number of objections or anything like that. And I take your point about wherever you put something, people are going to object, but it isn't just that. It's to do with our local plan.
Can I come back on that, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. The local plan, new and old, not confirmed yet. And again, even with houses, shops, factories everywhere, officers can approve or refuse. I respect that. I just think we've got to look at this one positively.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Stuart.
Right.
Stuart Peterfield for Maddie.
Okay, well, Councillor Barlow wanted to...
Well, he's already spoken. You've got Stuart. Was Stuart
he
had
asked
his
a
hand up
question.
first?
Okay,
well, we'll hear from Stuart Hughes and then
Yeah,
Councillor Barlow.
thanks, Chair. I mean, I think I've heard enough this morning to, and especially from Tom Winter, the Economic Development Officer, just how important this application is for the local area. I remember, I must have been on this council far too long because I've been on it for, 34 years, in my 35th year now. That's a long, long time. And when I first joined East Devon District Council, something that stuck in my mind was the words of Ted Pinney. And he said, "You listen to me, boy." He said, "Policy isn't written in tablets of stone." And he was absolutely right. I've seen policy change so many different times. And here we have a golden opportunity for 100 new jobs to be created in our area. And I think whatever the objections are, they should, this application should outweigh those objections. And therefore, I'm giving it my full support.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barlow, come back to you now.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened to the argument and I came in very much with an open mind. I couldn't decide which way to go. But again, I'm with Councillor Hughes, with Councillor Haggerty. I think we're always building houses, forcing houses on people because we must provide for local people to be able to afford a house here. We're building right across the road, Limpstone, 50% I think it was, or trying to get 50% affordable houses there. So there will be places for people to live, as Councillor Yehudi said, where will these people live that will want to work there? If we're building affordable houses, you've got to believe that these people will want jobs. This is somewhere where you can walk to work. This is somewhere, Epford, we've got one coming up in a minute, where officers recommend. Epford is now a sustainable village because of previous appeals, and the officers have said that this is now sustainable. So we're supposed to pass this. It's up for approval. And that is, again, within walking distance of this building. Is it right that a company that is built here, that people work there, are then told, sorry, you can't grow, you've got to go, and you're going to be moved out of the area? Our development officer, plus all the sequential tests they've gone through, have shown that there is not anywhere else suitable to do this. And you're right with the policies, you know, policy 7, strategy 7. But there is a thing, development in the open countryside outside the defined boundaries will be resisted unless on the merits of the particular case there is a proven agricultural, forestry or horticultural need for it, it will meet a community need that is not or otherwise will not be met. So a community need is jobs. A community need is education. A community need is all of the things that they are supplying locally to be able to walk to work, that we're trying to build. We're trying to build a town at the present time in our new strategic plan that is surrounding some of the listed buildings. But we're going to find a way around that. Whereas these listed buildings that we're supposed to be protecting, that is getting in the way of this, you know, they've got a main road in front of them with loads of traffic going through it. You can't see them from some of them. I went to the site, and I don't know if those other pictures we had were just as they're supposed to be or were enlarged, whatever. But again, I couldn't see anything around it. The site is sloping down. So again, noise and also the boundaries they're putting in of extra trees, etc., around the edge of it will screen. And again, we could stipulate that we want more trees around it to actually screen it further, if you're concerned about that. There is nowhere, as Dale says, that we are going to put anything that will not upset anyone. It doesn't matter whether it's at Greendale where you've got a big industrial units already. We don't want any more there. It doesn't matter if it's at Hillbarton. We don't have any more there. So I just think that, you know, we have a responsibility. If we're putting in all these houses, where do you expect people to work? Do you want them all to drive to the west end of Exeter, down through that road? Yeah, I think it's better that they've got the opportunity to walk from Exton, Lympston, Woodbury to a certain degree, and certainly cycle. So I, again, will be supporting this, and I'm happy to make a proposition as soon as you are ready, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll just say I think that's stretching the definition of community use in terms of the local plan. Ed, do you want to comment further on that?
Opinion, I believe planning is, Chair, and that is my opinion, which is I've just given. I'm sure Ed will have a different opinion.
Yeah, well, the idea of a strategic plan is it shouldn't be a matter of opinion, but it depends how well it's drafted. Did you want to say anything?
Yes, please, Chair. I mean, I think I must correct interpretation of that policy. I think the wording of the policy in the explanatory text is quite clear that that policy relates to things like agricultural buildings, community centres, forestry buildings, etc. in the countryside. It's never been applied in all the years that that's been an adopted policy of this council since 2016 to employment uses, you know, warehouses and B8 uses in the countryside. I would be very worried if we were taking that interpretation of that policy in the committee. I would also question the whole walking from Exton, Edford and Woodbury to the sites, if not the cycling as well. I certainly wouldn't want to cycle there. And the footpaths, I think, you know, I know Councillor Faithful has clarified the footpath provision, but I don't think we can reasonably say that you would walk there from those locations or that it would be safe to do so.
Oh, it's great cycling along the A376. You can hold up the traffic for hours because there's absolutely nowhere to overtake. No, I wouldn't do it, but I do occasionally see people doing it, and you want to wind the window down and scream to them, there's a cycle path. Okay, Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. I've sit and listened to the various comments, and as put across with my question. If there's a way that we can have the education somewhere, I don't see the need for the education to be that close to the distribution warehouse. I would have thought if they're coming in, they're going to come, most of them are going to come in from Sandygate sort of direction, rather, you might get some coming up from Exmouth. So to go from there to their present depot or wherever it wants to go, they're probably going to have to go past there anyway. I can see the need, the want to have teaching on site where the crops are growing, but I don't see the connection with the warehouse. So if there's some way that we could approve, whether they put in a fresh planning application and have the education as a separate issue, then I would be inclined to support it. But I just don't see the justification, as it's been said, having to go further down towards Exmouth, increasing the traffic down that stretch of road. And yes, I have cycled, and I've cycled in from Woodbury, and I've cycled all the way around there. I used to cycle to, because I set up the Gymkhana for riding club at Nutwell Lodge, and I cycled through from Woodbury. I don't actually have a problem coming from there, but the main thing is all this increased volume of traffic. I don't see the justification going down there. As I said, if they can come back with something which is more a way of separating the education from the warehouse somehow, I would really enthusiastically support that, because I do like what they're doing and I do like what they're wanting to do, but I just don't feel I can support where they're specifically where they're wanting to do it. I think that's really my issue. And no, it's not all about complaints, it's about taking on board everything that we have been told. Thank you, Chair.
No. Okay, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I support this. I think as District Council, we should support family-run businesses in our area and help them expand. And I know you're everywhere going on about the local plan, and I have to say the local plan and the neighbourhood plan hasn't exactly helped the residents of Exmouth in their point of view. And Exmouth is absolutely full to the brim. It takes an hour and a quarter for some of my residents to get into Exeter to work. So we should be encouraging employment. I don't think noise will be an issue. McCarthy and Stone have a 3-storey residential building with 94 apartments right next to Tesco's, and they don't seem to have a problem, so I'm not worried about that. Roads are a highways problem, and they can put in some pavements, and they can put in bus stops, and it's on the main bus route. So I think for the local schools, local children, local businesses, we should do more for it. And having made our own local plan, if we're not going to listen to other people's local plan, why should we listen to yours? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wragg.
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's not a case of we shouldn't feel threatened by a business saying they'll go elsewhere if they can't get an application through. They have the option to go to appeal. So it's not final. That would be the inspector's decision. This application, if approved, is industrial development in the countryside. It goes against the local plan. We've heard the argument about it's not written in stone. No, it's not. But what's the point of having a local plan if it's not going to give guidance for future development? It goes against the National Planning Policy Framework. It goes against Devon Wildlife Trust, it goes against our own conservation officer. There is nothing that I can see that's going for it. I agree with the Lympstone Parish Councillor, Susan Francis, that this is a distribution centre. Look at the areas involved. Storage and distribution, 2,725 square metres. Classroom, including kitchen, 186 square metres. This is dressed up as an educational facility when clearly it's a distribution centre. Surely you can see that. Yes, we know about the development that's going on, and we know the applications that are in for housing. Lympstone, Exton, Epford are primarily, they have become over the years with the decline of farming and of the fishing industry. Lympstone was a fishing village. They've become retirement villages. So now local people need somewhere to live, and applications are going in for development. I believe this is in totally the wrong place. We had the members advisory panel. I believe I might have chaired that one a few years ago. And the company or the applicant was advised to go for a sequential test because this site was deemed inappropriate. It is in the countryside. It's a coastal preservation area. All the policies that are in place go against this development. And what I will say is that if you allow this to go ahead, if we allow this to go ahead today, then that will open the way for development, maybe one near you in the countryside that you will be kicking against, but an inspector will refer back to this decision that we make today if we grant approval. Chair, if you're ready to accept, I would propose refusal of this application. We have all the policy in place there. Employment would pale into insignificance against the damage that this would do and the harm to the listed buildings around. I don't know if any of you've been there, but if you go to, it's now a Toby Carvery, but it's been a long established local hostelry, and you get a real, they talk about somebody says intangible. There's a tangible sense of history there. You can almost feel, you've gone back generations and what was there before. So that's the emotive side of it, but it also goes against what the conservation officer has recommended. There's nothing going for this apart from the educational element, which is a minute part of the application itself. It's dressed up, and I find it, I applaud the ethic of making children aware of where their food comes from, how it's prepared, and but this is a very small element of this. This is a distribution centre in the countryside, an industrial building right on the doorstep of listed buildings, and I don't think it should be allowed. No, I'd like to propose refusal.
Okay.
Just wanted to question precedent. The Vice Chair is saying that we are setting a precedent here. I was always told that you don't, in planning, set precedent.
I didn't say that.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
I will.
I didn't say set a precedent. You're wrong. No, I didn't.
Can we leave that one? Councillor Bragg didn't say it would set a precedent. What she said was that any inspector looking at a future application might well refer back to this one because we had allowed it. I think Councillor Collins did indicate that you would be happy to make a proposal. Do you wish to make that now? And I think Councillor Smith also indicated a willingness to second. I know, but Councillor Collins did say when she spoke that...
I mean, I'm happy to defer to Councillor Ragg because she's put it more eloquently than I think I did, so I'm happy with that.
So, are we going to take that as a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're happy to second, Bethany, yep. So we have a proposal to refuse from Councillor Ragg, seconded by Councillor Bethany Collins. So over to you, Damien. Why not?
Is there any more debate?
Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry, Kim. Councillor Bloxham. I got confused there by who was making the proposal, but you are on my list, and Councillor Levine as well. Yeah, let's hear from both of you.
Thank you. Oh, it's been an interesting debate this morning, and lots of well-spoken supporters and objectors giving very well-versed arguments on both sides. But I am coming down on the economic development strategy, and I think that outweighs any harm of this location. We've got approximately 100 full-time jobs. We've got significant educational benefits. I don't agree with the moderate or minimum educational benefits. Indirect job provision locally. I do think it's a sustainable location. We could argue with Mr. Freeman for the rest of the day, I'm sure, on the sustainability, but my personal opinion is I do think it's sustainable. There's the opportunity to purchase food locally. Lots of other things being said. We could go on, but I'm going to support the application. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Levine.
I need to have my two bits in the debate. I haven't opened my mouth lately. It was a very interesting debate, and I like local businesses, I support local businesses. I also discovered that I was a pioneer because 15 years back, when I was a governor at a school in rural Devon, we did educatering. We actually started it. We had an allotment in the school as well. So I'm up there. On the other hand, I sat through too many excruciating meetings of the Strategic Planning Committee, setting up policies, and this is to me counts for a lot. So despite my support of local businesses, I'm going in with policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's Councillor Howe.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the whys and whys and everything else, but I do have a technical question, and it's a legality thing. We've been advised a few times, and actually Councillor Young referred to it as well, of a members' advisory panel, but I can find no documentation on the website or anywhere else relating to the minutes of that members' advisory panel. Now, pre-apps, which a members' advisory panel is part of, I thought are open documents and as such have to be declared when an application goes live. But it's not in the officer's report mentioned, it's not on our website, and I think that's a flaw. I don't think it's a serious flaw, but it is a flaw and needs to be corrected in the future because they are public documents once an application goes live.
Yeah, I certainly remember that presentation because I was there online. Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I mean, it is our practice when there's a pre-app to then publish that when an application that relates to that same development on the same site to be published. So I'll have to look into, if that's not happened in this case, why that is the case. But I would agree with Councillor Ragg's assessment of what was said in that very much there was concern about this site, and the applicants were sent through to do a sequential test to look at alternative locations, and that was the main outcome, I think, of that, which in fairness they have now done, and you have that documented in the report before you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have no more speakers. I think everybody's probably spoken, actually. Well, we'll go to a vote then. So we have a proposal to refuse, and So all in favour? Okay. And those against refusal? Five. Maddie, bit slow. Yeah. Okay. So that is carried. Sorry. Were there any abstentions? Oh, Councillor Howe. Sorry, missed you over there, Mike. Okay. In that case, that application is refused. And we will now take a well-earned break and reconvene at 12:15. 12:15.
from Goosemore, Brian.
Okay.
Ham sandwiches from
We're
Goosemore.
still continuing the debate. We'll carry on to agenda item 9 now. What are we voting for? Yeah, whatever.
Hello, what we got next then?
Okay. Oh yes, this is this one in Epford. So we're moving just a little further along the road, along the pavement, Peter, thank you for that. But the pavement does not stretch all the way up to that junction, I know that. No, it definitely doesn't, Ian.
It does.
Really?
That's the other side of the hill.
Right-hand side going in towards Exeter. It's along the wall, all the way along, all the way.
Oh, on that side, yes. No, sorry, I was thinking the other
The other
side.
side of the road.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
fair enough. So all you've got to do is walk up to there and then cross 3 lanes of traffic. Yeah, because there's a turning, I know there's a right turn bay there. Are we all back then? Yep, okay, yeah,
You
councillor
better have the room full, 'cause
Chapman
Maddie's-
has left. We move on then to agenda item 9, planning application 251487. This is PIP, permission in principle, land adjoining Shepherd's Court, Lower Lane, Ebford. And that's pages 66 to 81 of your agenda pack. And so we will, Mrs. Ormsby is once again going to present the report.
Good afternoon, now it is. So, yes, this application before us is land adjacent Shepherd's Court, Lower Lane at Ebford, and it is seeking planning permission in principle for the erection of 5 self-build dwellings. You can see here the application site in red, so it's not encompassing the whole field, sort of generous 2/3 of the field. And just a reminder that permission in principle, the only things that we can take into consideration are location, land use, and the amount of development proposed. So matters such as drainage, for example, cannot be considered at this stage. It's relevant to point out here, because it's referenced in the committee report, there's reference to an appeal site at Branscombe Farm, and that is shown in blue. And that's a site where 2 houses were allowed on appeal, and where the inspector took the view that the site was in a sustainable location. I made a mistake there. The appeal was actually dismissed. It was not allowed, but it was dismissed for other reasons. But in his their deliberations, the inspector did conclude that it was a sustainable location. That said, Ebford itself does have little in the way of local facilities. It is not identified as a sustainable settlement in the local plan, and this should be considered under the context of Strategy 7, development in the countryside, and this would be, if approved, a departure from the local plan, which is one of the reasons it is before committee. So this shows again the relationship of the location within Ebford itself. Here is the site, here's the appeal site, and Exton lies to the south, and you can see Dart Farm Shop, which is here. And again, this is referring back to our previous conversations, there is a public footpath that runs along this stretch of the main road, of the Exmouth Road, and the inspector, in considering the blue appeal site took the view that it was possible to walk to the Dart farm shop, and therefore there was access to effectively to a shop, and also the inspector gave weight to the presence of bus stops on that road. Okay. So this is some photographs of the site. So this is looking north. The developed area would actually stop somewhere along here, so would stop short of the dwellings that are to the north. It's relevant to mention that in 2024, we refused planning permission for 13 houses on this site. One of the reasons was due to the fact of overlooking loss of privacy, the potential impact on these dwellings here. The application site now is set quite far away from those, so it's deemed that development of this site would not have any adverse impact, any significant adverse impact on the amenity of those dwellings. This is again looking, you can see the side boundaries, which are hedged and treed, and the expectation is that all of the field boundaries would be retained as present. This is looking south along the plot of land. This is looking north again. And again, this is closer, the houses to the north, but as I said, the development actually wouldn't be set within this parcel of land that you can see here. And this is Lower Lane, where the access will be taken. So this is looking, as you can see from here, looking in a westerly direction. So the application site is effectively behind and to the right of this hedgerow. And here you can just see the existing field entrance, which would be used, which could be used because access is not to be agreed, but is a potential access into the site. This shows again the proximity of the Branscombe Farm appeal site to the A376, and it also and that compares it to the appeal site. So it is to the application site. So it's a slightly longer walk out. So there's no footpaths on this road here. However, it is, and this was again falling back on the comments that the inspector was mentioning in terms of this walk, because there are dwellings already all the way along these roads, there's an expectation by traffic that people may be walking in the roads, and therefore people will tend to be driving relatively slowly. Once you get to the main road, there are public footpaths and there are bus stops around, I think, on this section of the road here. And there are also bus stops to the north near the George and Dragon pub. This just shows the location of the farm shop and the George and Dragon pub. Obviously, it is a longer walk if you're going north to either the pub or the shop. You've obviously coming out on the road here, so you have got a slightly longer walking distance than the site that was previously considered. So this shows the bus stops on either side of the Exmouth Road by Ebford Lane. And you can see that there is some street lighting and some pavements here. What's changed since we last considered this application? So we previously refused in 2024 an application for 13 houses on the site. At that time, that decision made, we were not applying the tilted balance because at the time we only had to demonstrate a 4-year housing land supply. This is contrary to the development plan, and therefore it was deemed that it was not a sustainable location, contrary to the development plan, and also we were concerned about potential impacts on neighbouring properties. Since that time, we now have to demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, which we cannot do, and therefore we do need to apply the tilted balance to this type of planning application. We've also had that recent appeal decision where an inspector has taken a view that that site, it obviously is not in the same location as this, but that particular site the inspector took did have adequate access to local facilities and felt that there were bus stops nearby such that they felt the site was sustainable. This proposal also is for a lower number of dwellings. So looking at this in the balance and applying the tilted balance, the officer view is that 5 units could be accommodated within this site without adversely affecting residential properties. There will be an immediate change in character of the site, but the site is actually quite well contained visually because it's surrounded by trees, hedges on all sides. So it would really just be from the lower lane where you're getting your access in that you would be particularly aware of the fact that this had changed in character. And we're having regard to the fact that an inspector has felt that it is that an alternative but nearby site is sustainably located in terms of access to facilities and a bus route. But clearly this is contrary to Strategy 7, its development in the countryside, and there will, notwithstanding the comments that have been made, nevertheless, and acknowledged by that inspector, will be a reasonable level of dependence on the car, because the only facilities within walking distance are a farm shop and a pub. So for all other aspects, unless people are using the buses, there will be use of the car. On balance, particularly having regard to the tilted balance in favour of development if deemed to be sustainable, this is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ormsby. Okay, so we hear first from Clisson and George Parish Council, Councillor John Manser.
Thank you, Chairman and members. We have 29 objections to this from quite a small community of Bedford, and I think that's quite significant. And they do raise some interesting objections on many subjects, actually, and that is the strength of feeling within the community. When it comes to Lower Lane, what the photograph didn't show is that Lower Lane sweeps around in front of a Grade 2 listed building where it is very narrow, and onto Old Bedford Lane. This is quite a narrow approach, and as you're coming from Old Bedford Lane into Lower Lane, it is a blind corner and you can't see the section of road that is single track. Now, I've struggled for some time to work out why highways have never objected to this, and the answer, of course, is that drivers see it as a dangerous situation where they can't see, and we basically crawl into Lower Lane at low speed. Now, fine, but there's also cyclists. It's a designated, Lower Lane is part of a designated cycleway, and there are also, of course, the dog walkers and local residents in the road as well. But the point is that 5, and they're going to be large houses, looking at the site, they're going to generate about 25 additional car movements every day, I would have said. So it's going to become busier and busier in that area. So this is one reason the Parish Council have said that it's contrary to our local plan. And otherwise, the shopping bit, as you people who know Darts Farm, it doesn't supply all of the things that a household needs for a week's shopping at all. It's very much a high-end, high-quality emporium, and we're quite proud that it's there, but a lot of people locally don't use it that much. They'll prefer to go to Tesco's at Exvale or down to Topsham for the co-op. So basically, we think that it is against our local plan, which I've detailed, and also against the East Devon District Council's local plan and emerging local plan. Thank you, Chairman.
When you say local plan, presumably you mean neighbourhood plan, your...
No, I'm saying it's against St George neighbourhood plan, yes, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to clarify that one, that when you said your local plan, I assumed you meant neighbourhood plan, but just for clarity for the committee, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, next we hear from the agent, Hannah Cameron.
Good afternoon, members. I speak today on behalf of the applicant, RBL Homes, who specialise in bringing self and custom-build plots to the market, and delivered the neighbouring site, Shepherd's Court, which was granted permission by this council in 2014, at a time that there was no 5-year land supply. Whilst a number of objections have been made to this application, many relate to matters that are not before you for consideration today. Other planning considerations, as we've heard from your officer, such as access, design, drainage, trees, ecology, are not matters for consideration under this permission in principle application. Instead, these matters fall to be considered later at the technical details consent stage, and the relevant considerations in this determination are limited to location, land use, and the amount of development proposed. Members have been made aware that there were 3 previously refused applications for this land, totalling 13 dwellings. However, there has been a material change in circumstances, as acknowledged by your officers. The council is now unable to demonstrate a 5-year land supply, with the 2.97-year supply being a significant undersupply. Consequently, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. The key matter for you to consider today is whether Ebford and this land parcel is a sustainable location for residential development, and so it's important that I draw your attention to the recent appeal from March this year relating to Branscombe Farm. The inspector in the Branscombe Farm appeal acknowledged the nature of the walking and cycling routes in the area, the availability of public transport, and the nearby services and amenities, along with the need for private motor vehicles. Critically, the inspector found, and I quote, "The appeal site lies within a sustainable location in relation to access to services and facilities, and in this respect accords with policies 5B, Strategy 7 and TC2 of the East Devon Local Plan." Your officers have concluded that the relationship to this site to the services and amenities is not significantly different to the Branscombe Farm site, and have consequently applied the findings of the planning inspector consistently. The site is of a sufficient size for appropriately designed low-density residential development. The site is less than 5 homes per hectare. The development will accord with the nearby pattern of development and will respect the local character and the amenity of neighbouring properties. Overall, applying paragraph 11D of the NPPF, there are no strong reasons for refusing the proposed development, nor are there any adverse impacts that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of this proposed scheme. The delivery of 5 self-build dwellings should be given significant weight in the planning balance, and I urge you to support your officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, right, questions. I'm going to ask one. Sorry, Mike. Oh, not on my list. Did Councillor Howe actually apply to speak on this one?
I heard him ask this morning, Chair.
Carry on, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I'd like to actually thank the applicant's agent because actually it's one of the more concise and accurate descriptions. I might disagree with that, but nevertheless, it was one of the better presentations I've seen and actually relating to this piece of land and the highlights, the actual issues we are going to talk about. I suppose the fundamental about this land, and as Councillor Manser has already mentioned, it is against our local plan currently, it is against our emerging local plan, it is against the neighbourhood plan. But we have this 5-year housing land supply issue. The crux of it is this appeal around the corner, and it is around the corner. And the statements, the astonishing statements, I believe, the appeal inspector made, basically saying, don't worry about walking and cycling, you know, don't worry about sustainable modes of travel because you can use your car, fundamentally. And that pretty well opens up any part of our district now to being developed. And, you know, even the statement in paragraph 10 of those, it is likely that most trips to access employment, schools and other everyday need will be made by private vehicles. Okay, forget it. Don't worry about sustainability anymore. Let's just go with a car. And that's the fundamental of this. This is further away from those resources. It is actually, if you try getting to the school, which is in Clisson George, a fantastic little school we got in Clisson George, there is no hope in hell you'd ever walk that route. You're going to have to use your car. The path on that side of the road is 1.5 feet wide. You can't have a child alongside you. You can't even push a buggy up that path. And that is the fundamental issue I think we've got. The appeal application that was allowed is above that footpath and as such has a better access to the school. So I do have concerns about this, but at the same time, the overriding factor is, do we think it is acceptable now to use a car every day for your mode of transport and sustainability purposes? And that is the question we all have to now define ourselves on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howe. Good question, Ian. We need to open that one up another time, I think. Okay, and thank you, Mike, for highlighting that. I just wanted to ask Mrs. Ormsby, do inspectors ever dare to disagree with each other? If let's just say this went to appeal, would an inspector conclude that the previous inspector was wrong in this being a sustainable location, or at least that this site being further away from the bus stop, the previous site was a lot closer? Do they ever disagree on things like that?
I've not seen inspectors openly say that they felt a previous inspector's decision was wrong. They may look at a site and decide that it is materially different to another site and therefore draw different conclusions. In terms of reference to the bus stop, I think this one is actually closer though to the bus stop, because there's bus stop up at the George, but there's also one just at the junction of where that road. Wendy, could you put the plans up, please?
Yeah. There is a bus stop at the junction of Old Edford Lane with the main road. And in fact, there's a pedestrianised crossing there, isn't there, I think. I just looked at Google Maps. It's not showing a bus stop at the opposite end of, I can't remember the name of the road that comes out further up on the A376. I can't see a bus stop there. As far as I can see, the only bus stop is opposite the blue road end, not the red one shown there. I would have said from the map that was the blue line. I think is Ebford Lane, isn't it? Yes. Well, as far as I understand, that is where the no.
The bus stop was there yesterday.
Bus stop's there, right, yeah.
At the end of Old Ebford Lane. Old Ebford Lane. Sorry. Okay. Well, that's even more interesting because I thought it was the end of Ebford Lane. That comes out. Yeah, that comes out further up. Oh, yes, I know that one. That's a horrendous little junction to turn into or out of in a car, I'm talking about. And then there is a bus stop on the Topsham Road up at the George and Dragon, which I would say, if anything, it's closer to. Okay, still on questions, Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. A short while ago, I went to a planning training exercise in self-built houses. And I was told that LPAs have got an obligation to build a certain percentage of self-built houses in the area. So what weight do I need to put on the fact that these are self-built houses?
We do have policies to encourage the provision of self-built houses. My understanding is that at present, because we are required to keep a self-build register and to basically count how many self-built houses are coming forward, and I believe that we are on target. We are delivering the requisite number of self-built plots, but there is some weight to be given to the fact that they are self-built. But we are seeing a lot more self-built houses coming in now because, reasons on the fact that they are exempt from biodiversity net gain. So there's a lot more coming down the line than perhaps have been in the past.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Barlow, then Councillor Smith and Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm that self-build means no sill, no biodiversity net gain? So basically, building companies go in and build it, and you tell them you want a different sort of roof on it, and that is self-build. These aren't people. Don't want you to think that these are people going out with their hammer and screwdriver and actually building a house. And that was the thing. I just wanted to confirm. There is no sill on this. Affordable housing, that decided later, or does that not get any affordable housing because of it's self-build as well? Or too early?
It's below 10 units, so...
Right. No. So there is no benefit to us as a district other than the fact you're going to have 5 very large houses put there. They're not going to be affordable. They will have to travel by car to go to their works, etc. Although they might be the sort of people that would shop at Darts Farm.
So in terms of sill, the definition of self-build is different for biodiversity net gain than is for sill. I think biodiversity net gain itself or custom build, whereas sill is self-build only. So, but I believe, we can't condition anything at this stage, but if they are proposed as self-build at the technical detail stage, we would normally apply now, because of the BNG exemption, we would apply a condition saying that they are to be built and provided as self-build and occupied for a minimum period of, I think it's 3 years, following occupation to effectively, as a consequence of the exemptions that they've gained, which they do have to with SIL anyway. If you sell a house on within the 3-year period, then the SIL can be clawed back.
But again, SIL is a substantial amount of money on a large house. Substantial amount.
Yes, it
50,
is.
£60,000 minimum.
Yep, could be that amount, yes.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
I was actually going to ask about the self-build status as well, actually. And I wanted to note, I knew that we couldn't make any decisions now, but I also wanted to note that we, as a committee, would like potentially to see that and have that attached to conditions later on, because obviously being a loophole effectively, if we didn't expressly, because it'd be all over it anyway, so that's fine. All I would say is, could we update on our own website the register, because I think the last self-build register I think was 2023 or even later. So I went to look at it the other day, and we haven't had update information on there. So yeah, just a request.
Yeah, I thought I'd seen some figures at strategic planning, but maybe not. Would that be conditioned on this approval, or would it have to form part of a subsequent application? Yeah. So we could approve permission in principle, and then it could come back as not self-build, could it?
I'm just checking the
I think that's why there's so much
description of the
interest.
development.
In the description, it does say self-built.
Yeah.
It does.
However, Symonds just had one where we were promised all sorts of things in the PIP, in the actual dialogue that the officer put forward, and then when it came to the actual decision notice she put forward, it just said nine properties, whatever. And now they've totally changed it, put another floor on it, and done all sorts of things. So I must admit, Sidmouth Town Council feels that it's a eyes wide open thing rather than a trust what they say.
But obviously there would be other advantages to them in still maintaining the self-build status, as you've pointed out. Okay. Yeah, any comment on the self-build idea?
So it's in the description of development, so therefore then that should carry through into the technical details, but it's only at the technical detail stage, assuming we approve it, that we would then add the condition requiring that they are developed as self-build.
Okay, Councillor, sorry, Ian, did you?
It was just a question on the, sorry, it's another question, if you want to.
Okay, well, can I take Peter's first, because he was first. Okay, Peter?
Well, I'm just trying to get clarification. What is the difference between self-build and custom build? With reading on what was said about other houses that were built there, it was like the condition was that they had to do the building. The seller was doing the building, and it's like, well, how is that self-build? Is that a custom build rather than a self-build, and how do you separate them?
So my understanding is that self-build is where the person, the applicant, is effectively will have a significant, if not total, input into the design, layout, will be, involved in at least overseeing the construction, if not doing it themselves, but directly sort of effectively project managing. So they're involved in all stages of the building of that house. Custom build, my understanding is that it can be a builder themselves, could perhaps design and get planning permission for the external, you know, what it's going to look like, the size, etc. But then whoever is going to be occupying that house will have an input and might be selecting, might have an input maybe onto the internal layout a bit, or it can be, as my understanding, as little as, you know, selecting the kitchen equipment and the tiles and the bathroom equipment and the bathroom tiles, etc. That, I think, is the difference between custom build and self-build.
So this applicant is putting in for 5 houses, then they cannot be doing self-build themselves, because they're building, a self-build is, by definition, you're building yourself a house to live in, and you're not going to live in 5 of them, are you?
Because you can get planning permission and then the plots can be sold off individually to people who would then deliver them as self-build plots themselves. So I think that's how it often comes forward when it's a site with a larger number of dwellings.
Am I right in thinking at this stage we can ignore the fact of them being self-build, because they're not self-build? They only become self-build when they're sold on as a plot, and then the person builds it for themselves. At the present stage, they can't be self-build because they can't do it. All we're talking about is 5 houses, regardless of what they are.
Well, they are proposed to be self-build houses. That's what the applicant has said. They've expressed that the intention is that when it comes forward at technical detail stage, that they will be proposed for self-build. So that's what we have to consider, because that's what the application is for.
Ian, you had another question.
Yeah, well, I mean, just on that point, again, even though the builder owns the plot, he could quite happily sell them individually to people. Come along and say, what house do you want? I'm a builder. I will build them for you. That is self-build. And that gets rid of the sill. How many houses are we short now on our housing amount of houses we're supposed to have? I know it's a percentage, but how many we talk about? 1,000, 3,000?
So the housing, I haven't yet seen this year's housing position statement. So I'm only going on, it normally is published around now. I don't actually, off the top of my head, know the numbers. I know that we were sort of, was it 2.97 years worth, and in a year, are we supposed to be delivering about, no, I think it's around I think it was about 600. Right. So that would indicate, so if we're short about around 2,000, yeah.
So 5 houses is, I mean, it's a help, but we're not shifting we're not making a lot of difference to it, are we?
No, I think though the principle is that the tilted balance still applies.
Yeah.
Not the actual contribution, I agree, to our housing supply is very small, but the tilted balance has to
So
apply.
should we not be saying we want the 13 houses then in this?
Well, that's not what the application is for, and previous applications for a number as large as that have been turned down. Okay, Councillor Bailey, you had a question. Sorry?
Been answered.
My question has already been asked
Oh, it's
by
been
Councillor
answered.
Barlow.
Fine, thank you. Okay, any more questions before we go into debate? Okay. Who'd like to start us off? Okay. Yeah, thank you, Eileen.
Right, thank you. This is something that I think concerns most of us, in that because we don't have a 5-year housing land supply, that it effectively means that a developer can come forward with just about anything and know that they're going to get approved, probably, because we'd be on dodgy ground and turning it down. However, it doesn't mean to say, as was said earlier, things are set in stone, but this does go against the local policy. So you can, I think, I don't know, maybe I'd ask Mrs. Ormsby. An inspector, I think, would take a reasonable view that we were acting fairly in if we wanted to refuse this because it goes against policy, we did it in the best interests of our constituents. So I don't think that we should be beaten into submission by this 5-year land supply. I think sometimes you have to be bold enough to challenge it. And you might get an inspector, you might not, but you might get an inspector who will look at it reasonably and think, yes, they've acted within reason. So I've no really strong views, but I am, always conscious of policy, and what's the point of having policies if you're not going to follow them? That's all I have to say on that one, Chair. Councillor Barlow wants.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, although the tilted balance applies, it still only applies if the location is considered sustainable, as Mrs. Ormsby pointed out earlier. So I think, unfortunately, the applicant did sum it up nicely for us in saying we have to consider whether it's a sustainable location. And I must say, I'm even more baffled by the previous inspector's judgment, given that I thought Ebford Lane was where the junction was and the lights. But of course it's old Ebford Lane, and I do know Ebford Lane, and if you blink you miss it, where it comes out onto the road. So I must say I'm even more mystified by that one. Anyway, yeah, I still think the big question is, do we consider this to be a sustainable location? So, Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. Do you know what? The sustainable location, that's an argument that obviously has been put forward. Is it sustainable? Yes, there's a shop you can get to. Yes, you can get to a bus. But everyone's going to drive by car. Well, everyone's going to drive by car. Doesn't matter whether you put it in Cranbrook or anywhere they can walk, they're still going to have a car. Because at the end of the day, you want to go a little bit further occasionally. So they're going to have a car. And the majority of people are lazy and they will get in their car. If it's a little bit dimpsy outside or anything, they might walk occasionally when it's nice and sunny and they're feeling like they want to get healthy. I'm more concerned about this being self-build. I think at the end of the day that brings, these are not going to be small houses. They're not going to be affordable. They're not going to have any sill money on them. Where's the benefit? We're pushing the boundaries of, as the Vice Chair says, we are allowing to bend our rules, to break our rules, because of the tilted balance, but then we're not tilting the balance very far. We're putting 5 luxury homes in there, or big homes that are going to be built there. And to me, do you know what? No, I'm not for it. I don't think there's any benefit to society, to anyone, for building 5 big houses there, other than the developer. So I certainly won't be supporting the officer's recommendation on this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And Councillor Bailey, you wanted to come in, and then Councillor Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the tilted balance, I think a lot of decisions that have been made in this room since the tilted balance, pardon me, is applied, would never be given the light of day if it wasn't for the fact that tilted balance was there. Now, we're talking about 5 houses in a small village with no facilities whatsoever. Excuse me. We've put hundreds of houses in Exmouth where there's no facilities at all, not even a lane. And we said, that's fine, we can do that. But I don't think it's fine at all. And I think I've got to agree with Councillor Barlow on this. I think it's, how can I say, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. And I'd like to leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I'll treasure that one for the rest of the day, Brian. Thank you. Councillor Haggerty.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're all going to, excuse me, there's going to be lots of difference of opinions here, whether it is, where it is, what it is and what it is. I'm actually going to, I'm quite happy to put a proposal to recommend approving as per the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit mixed on this because, I mean, as I see it, am I right in thinking that Epford hasn't got any open space at all, and I want to get some 106 or Sill or whatever it is, a bit of open space for children, but there isn't anything, but I don't think we can even do that with self-build anyway. But it's being bit hard to argue against it. I mean, I do support pretty much everything that Councillor Barlow has said, but this thing of this flaming 5-year housing land supply, and where's it going to go if it goes to appeal? Because you've got the bus stop, and the Exmouth bus is one of the busiest buses. It starts at some stupid hour of the morning and finishes after midnight. I mean, we'd be chuffed to bits if we had a few extra hours in Otley, but, you know, so you've got a bus service there that takes you into Exeter. If you take you to Topsham, you can get off at the top of Bridge Hill and cut across you straight to the surgery in Topsham. You have to walk across the railway line to get to it, but you can get to it. I don't want to support it, but I just feel inclined to go for it because of that flaming 5-year housing land supply.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, as you say, I mean, it does come down to whether we consider this a sustainable location. Yes, it's a reasonably good bus service. It's a 20-minute service during the day, goes down to an hour at night. I think it's only the weekends that they run to after midnight. Is that right? I mean, I think it's, but it's quite late actually, even during the week. I think the last bus out of Exeter is about 11. So it's pretty good. When I use it quite a lot. Okay. Did we have, actually, sorry, Del made a proposal there. I should have asked for a seconder for approval. Councillor Bloxham, do you wish to speak on that?
No, I think it's a difficult one, but I think with the 5-year land supply, I'm going to go with seconding the approval.
Okay. I think if we do go with approval, we have to accept that this is a sustainable location. Yeah. Well, I think the inspector has already set the precedent. I think if it hadn't been for that inspector's judgment, officers might well have been recommending refusal here. Certainly, other applications in this area and in Exton. I think I remember crossing swords with Councillor Howe about one in Exton on one occasion because I said it was right on the cycle path. So it's definitely a moot point, but it is a good bus service. There is, as been pointed out, a cycle route, so it's pretty balanced. However, we have a proposal to approve made by Councillor Haggerty, seconded by Councillor Bloxham. So all in favour of approval.
Yeah, one moment. We've also got an appropriate assessment to adopt.
Oh,
so
yes.
Can we just vote on that first?
Yeah. So the appropriate assessment, can we vote on that first, please? All in favour of the appropriate assessment being adopted. Okay, yeah. And secondly, that permission in principle be approved. All in favour of that? And those against?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, so that motion falls. So do we have another proposal? Because we've just voted against approval. Do we have a motion to refuse? Councillor Bailey.
Yes, I'll propose that, Chair.
Okay. Seconder? Councillor Barlow. Okay, so we have a proposal to refuse and all in.
Reasons.
Okay, reasons for refusal.
I personally think it's unsustainable, whatever the inspector says. And it's on the national cycle route, which you put 5 houses of that size in there, you're looking probably 4, maybe 5 vehicles in the house, which is going to put a lot of extra strain on that road. And especially in the summertime, I believe the cycle route is well used. So I think protection of the cyclists would be my first concern.
Also, can we?
Sorry.
Also, adding to that MP7, whatever the building in the outside the countryside, it's not in the strategic plan. And at the end of the day, yeah, I think that should be enough.
So contrary to strategy 7
yeah.
of the local plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so Mrs. Ormsby is just going to come back with the reasons why. Is this the one in blue?
No.
No. Oh, previous schemes on this site. Yeah.
So obviously we need to be consistent unless there are material changes since that time. And obviously I've set out why the officers felt there were, but that motion to approve has failed. So in terms of the fact that this is just a PIP, because there were 5 reasons for refusal and I've just picked one of because there were the combined applications on the site previously. So the first one was that the site's located outside a built-up area boundary where residential development is restricted. The absence of convenient pedestrian footways, lighting, and the distance between the site and local services and facilities in and around Everwood would lead to residents to rely on travel by private motor vehicles. The site does not therefore occupy a sustainable location for residential development. As such, proposal is contrary to the visions of Strategy 5B, Strategy 7, Strategy 27 of the East Devon local plan and the NPPF, which concerns actively managing patterns of growth in support of the promotion of opportunities for walking, cycling and public transport in conflict with the environmental dimension of sustainable development. So that was one of the reasons that could apply. And then members might want to consider, there's only other one which I think could be relevant to a permission in principle, was that development was refused on the basis of the proposed siting of the dwellings and access road fails to respect the established pattern of development of the surrounding built environment and would erode the semi-rural character of the area. As such, the proposal would be contrary to Strategy 7 and policies D1 of the local plan and policy CSG 9 of the Clyst St George neighbourhood plan. Now, I've not heard members commenting about any concern about the impact of the character of the area. And obviously this is for five dwellings where previously, I mean, this scheme was for 5 dwellings, the one I'm looking at, but it was part of the site with proposals. I believe, don't want to give you the wrong information. Let me just check the location plan. Yes, that was a small part actually of the upper part of the site here, because we had I think 3 applications that cumulatively came to 13, so they were proposing just 5 here. So cumulatively there was a proposal for a larger number of dwellings. So I'm just really highlighting that those are 2 reasons for refusal that were used previously that could be relevant, but only if members genuinely, I mean, the only thing I've heard in debate is concern about the sustainability of location.
I think Councillor Howe was trying to get your attention. I just have to
Sorry,
be in your eye
Mike.
line.
It was just to give a third way, because there seems to be a lot of doubt about this. I've cast some doubt on this. And when we're talking about sustainability, the best way to go and assess it is on site and go for a site visit. Then you can really work out the differences between the one that would have been, well, wasn't approved, but says is sustainable, and this one. That is by far your firmest way to do it.
Okay. Are you proposing that, Mike?
I'm happy to propose that, yes.
Okay.
That's an amendment then. That's an amendment.
I've got
That's all
the,
right, he's withdrawn then.
Well, it's not just a withdrawal.
okay. Okay. Shall we go for a site visit then? Okay. We do. So, did we have a seconder for a site visit? Thank you, Councillor Levine. So, all in favour of a site visit then? 2, 3, 4, 6, 7,
8, I think.
8, was it?
Councillor Howe.
Oh, yeah.
I counted 8. Can we just viz again?
Yep, I think you're right, actually. Can we just vote again, members, please? Brian, were you?
Come on, just you exercise for the day. Try and lift your arms. That's the way. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. I was right.
8.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone against a site visit?
It's going to be fed soon. So,
Any
8 in
against?
favour, any
No.
against?
Abstentions? Okay. I might even be able to cycle to that one. Could definitely get the bus. Okay. I've got a job, believe me. Okay, so we'll defer that one for a site visit, and we'll arrange that in due course. So keep an eye on your emails, and we'll arrange that. Okay, in that case, that brings us to the last one for the morning, agenda item 10, planning application 251279, outline, Honiton in Alliscombe, Honiton, pages 82 to 104 in your agenda pack. And, oh, Gareth is taking his place. Gareth Stevenson, Principal Planning Officer, is going to present this report.
There we go. Thank you. Hope everyone's not too hungry. Okay. So the next application is at the Honiton Inn in Alliscombe. And this seeks the demolition of the existing public house, the pub, and erection of 5 dwellings. And this is made in outline with all matters reserved. So we're basically looking at the principle of 5 units on this land. Now, just to set a little bit of context as to where we are in Alderscombe, here's the pub itself. The buildings in purple are listed buildings. This yellow area is the AONB. We have residential properties which curve around here. Just off this picture is the local school and church. We have a village hall here, which has its car park here. And there's also a bus stop, which is just outside the pub, but doesn't have any signage. So that just sets the context as to where we are in Alderscombe. Now, although Alderscombe has those features, it doesn't have a built-up area boundary, and it's not due to have one in the emerging local plan. But saying that, it does have some sustainable attributes, like we saw. We've got the school, we've got the parish hall, we've got the church, we've got the bus stop. And there is a pavement with pedestrian links to each of those. So in terms of sustainability in the round, whilst it's recognised that it doesn't have a built-up area boundary, it does nevertheless have some sustainable attributes and services and facilities. Now, members may be aware, earlier this year we had an appeal just outside Alderscombe, a place called Hillcrest. And that was a proposal for 20 dwellings, which was dismissed. And the main difference between that proposal, which was dismissed by the inspector, and this current site is that the quantum of development is different. We're now dealing with 5 instead of 20. Notably, the distance to services and facilities is different. This was further to the east, where there wasn't suitable pavements and distance and lit passageways to those services within Alderscombe, and it didn't include the development of brownfield land. It was on a greenfield. So there are differences that separate it between that recent appeal. So bear in mind that this is all indicative, the layout that is. This shows how they envisage 5 dwellings being put on the site. So we're looking at 5 dwellings over 0.14 of a hectare, which brings a density of 35.7 dwellings per hectare, which is about medium density. You can see from the parking spaces, there's 2 per dwelling, so we've got 10 car parking spaces. And although it's indicative, you've got additional landscaping shown there. Now, we are dealing with the potential loss of the community pub. And they've done an extensive and robust marketing exercise. It's currently on the market for 395 grand. Marketing has taken place for more than the mandatory 12-month period. They've said that they only had 4 viewings and no formal offers, despite running incentives, for example, rent-free periods. Over 12 years, they had 2 tenants who said that they couldn't sustain the business, and the pub in its current state has been closed for over 15 months. No community groups have taken this on, and it's not an asset of community value. There are apparently prohibitive utility and repair costs because it's quite a big property. And there's also quite a few other country pubs which are making competition conditions difficult for this to compete. So the evidence that they've submitted, and as per the officer report, is that the evidence shows that the pub is not viable as an ongoing concern, meaning there'd be no community harm from its loss. So here's, I stress, indicative. These are the 3 that would face the main road. And I think we're probably all in agreement that it'd probably look better as a terrace and consolidated, and to give a little bit more breathing space and to maybe kind of echo the form of the existing pub, which immediately fronts onto the highway, than detached properties as shown there. So this shows the 2 shown as detached properties. Again, could probably benefit from being consolidated into a pair of semis, into semi-detached properties to give a little more breathing room. But this is, again, and I stress, indicative. We're dealing with the principle of development on this site. In terms of drainage, we've got, not sure if you can quite see it, we've got soakaways to the rear of these properties. We have a linear swale shown in blue here to deal with exceedant flows. And we've got infiltration crates to the rear of these properties. Foul water, South West Water has confirmed that there's a line within the main road which it could connect to. And the surface water is designed to BREEAM 365 standards, allows for 1 in 100-year events plus 40% climate change. And you may have seen that there's a condition on the recommendation for water butts. This shows the tree protection plan. We haven't got protected trees here, but we have got trees that are noteworthy, categorized as B1 trees. We've got a cherry tree down here and an apple tree up here, but this shows protective measures, which again would be subject to condition. There's no objection from our arboriculturalist. So a range of photographs to give you kind of a feel for the property. You can see the for sale sign here. You can see the main road is literally on the main road. It looks like it's got existing drainage onto that highway. You can see the gutters there which are coming through there. This is from the side of the property where you've got the beer garden. So to take into account in the planning balance, we have to recognise that yes, there is conflict with the existing local plan because Orliscombe hasn't got a built-up area boundary, and I don't think we can pretend that it's as sustainable as somewhere like Sidmouth or Honiton, which does have a built-up area boundary, but nevertheless, as per the report, it does have sustainable attributes which have to be taken into account in the planning balance. Now, there's a government in the NPPF talks about the efficient use of brownfield land. So that's land that has been previously developed, i.e. the pub, and the curtilage of it, i.e. the pub garden and the land to the rear. And what the national framework tells us is that the redevelopment of these sites should be generally approved unless there's substantial harm, and substantial is the word they use. Throw that into the mix with the lack of 5-year land supply, and the tilted balance is engaged yet once again because we're dealing with housing, so any harms needs to be significant and demonstrable. Combined with the fact that they've demonstrated that there won't be a community facility lost because no one's willing to take it on as an ongoing concern, that tips the balance in favour because there's not substantial harm in this case. We've got no statutory consultee objections to the proposal, and therefore a recommendation of approval is made. Looking at the conditions, we've got because again it's outlined, so we've got outlined time limits, and then we've got the requirement for reserved matters to be submitted. Due to the surrounding properties, you need to make sure that the construction phase is carefully managed. There's a pre-commencement condition to ensure that a suitable programme is submitted and adhered to. We talked about water conservation and the water butts and details of that again, pre-commencement. Highways wanted cycle and scooter storage facilities. Ecology wanted adherence to protected species and compliance with that. The tree officer wanted the tree information to compliance condition. Surface water to make sure that those features are installed prior to first occupation. Again, is a condition. And then we've got 2 archaeology conditions, one for a written scheme of investigation and one to follow that up post-development with post-investigation to be submitted for Devon County ecologists to have a look at. So that explains why the recommendation is one of approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Okay, I'm going to call on Councillor Roy Collins, first, who is speaking as a member of the public because he's not here as the ward member or the adjoining ward member. Well, I think we decided he was, but he wished to speak. So over to you, Roy.
Thank you, Chairman. I am an adjoining ward member. My grandfather was born in the farm opposite this pub, Heathfield Farm, in 1871, and it was a thriving pub then. My brother farmed at Huntay's farm for 17 years. He had 3 sons. Bethany's father was one. And unfortunately, he lost the tenancy of the farm in 1983. He couldn't find anywhere to live in the village or his sons, so the family moved to Honiton and other places. Olliscombe has nearly 3,000 acres farmland, forestry. It has 2 hamlets. We have a thriving hamlet at Weston, and there's another hamlet at Wolverstone. There are 2 bus services there. I'm sure Peter will give you the times. There is a pavement all the way to Honiton from Olliscombe, and it's only just over a mile. I am not happy about the demolition of this public house. I went out and had a good look at it yesterday, and it is in very good condition structurally to me. I mean, there's quite a wide pavement between the road, and local people tell me it could be easily converted into 4 flats, which are badly needed. And I feel that the gardens, you could put a row of terraced houses up through there, get lots of houses on this site. It's a brownfield site. Why not put lots of houses there and reduce the price so that local people to the area can buy them? At the moment, the people I went to school with, they've had to leave that village. They can't stay there. They can't afford the houses. We don't want more executive type houses in this village. We need new houses suitable for younger families. The school is next door there. It's crazy not to build houses. There used to be a post office in Olliscombe. There was a hardware, a building firm. They had a hardware shop there and a builder's merchants where local people could go and buy things for decorating, etc. You could get loads of different items there. That closed within the last 12 months. The village is dying. It needs new houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. I just want to check that the actual design of the layout and so on would come back at the reserved matters stage, and presumably that would include the demolition or otherwise of the pub, would it?
Yeah, so this is in outline with all matters reserved, including layout and appearance. So that, if approved, would come forward at a future stage. But I think as part of the description of this development and making your decision, you'd have to accept that the pub is going to be demolished.
So, sorry, Chair, just on that point, that means, because it says very clearly, proposal, demolish of existing public house and erection of 5 dwellings. But that's, even the demolition has got to come back? Because I would read that you could just knock it down as soon as we pass this. That is agreed.
The application.
Well, it's an outline application. It's not, as I understand it, an application for demolition. So can I just...
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The demolition of existing public house and erection of 5 dwellings.
Yeah, it accepts the demolition as a matter of principle, but no more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the approval would involve the demolition of the pub. There would be nothing to stop them coming back with that. Okay. So we'll hear from the agent, Norman Gillen.
There we go. Yeah. Thank you for hearing me today. I'll keep this reasonably brief. I think the report, the officer's report and the presentation is comprehensive in terms of some of the issues. And obviously, we've just had the discussion on the previous application, which shares some of the similar characteristics in terms of the tilted balance and sustainable locations. And there was the glowing review of the previous agent, so I don't want to be unfavourably compared to her for this application. I think just to pick up a couple of the points that were, I think, raised in the previous application, which may also be relevant here. I think a distinction is to be drawn between, I think, the previous sort of greenfield site and this brownfield site, previously developed land site, where the NPPF, I think, has set out by the planning officer, favours development. The marketing, and whilst the applicant has tried to market the pub and have tenants, it's not been possible. There is no viable business there, hence the development being brought in front of you. They are smaller units. I think there may be some discussion about what's a large unit, what's a small unit. They probably do need to be big enough to have families if the local places in the local school are to be taken up, but hopefully not too big so that local people can afford the units that are proposed. I think some of the, certainly it will come down to detail in the reserve matters applications in terms of whether the terraced or whether the semi-detached, in favour of the layout that's shown just now, which is just indicative. So I would urge the members to consider these matters, the sustainable location, and hopefully approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've got to hear from the ward member first. So Councillor Colin Brown has made a representation, which I think possibly you've all seen. No, okay, it was only me. So Wendy is going to read this one out. Yes, I have seen this one. Thank you.
Okay, so firstly, Councillor Brown has pointed out that on page 81 of the agenda, there shows a car park at the Orliscombe Inn. This car park belongs to the Village Hall. And then he goes on to say, the Orliscombe Inn fronts the main A373, a major road to junction 28 of the M5. The proposed plot sizes and design is out of keeping with the village, with 3-storey houses proposed in the rear garden overlooking bungalows. This is classed as an unsustainable village, with the inspector agreeing with the council on a number of appeals. I realise we refer to a tilted balance, but let's not tilt the balance too far and allow 5 units, 2 of which proposed are 3 storeys. Let's not use the tilted balance to build inappropriate properties on a cramped site, which would be out of keeping with the village, bearing in mind most properties surrounding the public house are bungalows. This is to be developed. If this is to be developed, then 3 properties, as agreed by the parish council, would be more appropriate. Also, if the properties were set back more, it would give better visibility on the major A373 road. Therefore, I am not in agreement with the recommendation to approve this application. It does not meet Strategy 27, Strategy 7, Strategy 5B and Policy TC2. If to be approved, I consider a revised application for 3 units to be more appropriate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just check with the officers that the quantum of development, is that accepted in the outline application, or if it comes to committee, could committee refuse it because they felt it was overdevelopment of the site, say for 5 units, and as Councillor Brown suggested, 2 or 3 might be more appropriate?
Yes, sorry. So if approved at outline stage, as per the description, it's for the erection of 5 dwellings, and that's what they could bring forward up to. They could bring up to that number in a reserved matters application. So you would effectively be approving 5 dwellings at this stage. Although that is an indicative layout, and there could be some variation, indeed there probably should be, to make it a bit more cohesive with the kind of core of the settlement, you would be approving 5 dwellings if approved.
Thank you for that clarification. I wasn't sure about that. Okay, questions? Councillor Levine.
to make this statement as a ward member, because I agree with what Councillor Brown says. There's no problem about demolishing the pub. The community is not interested in buying it as a village asset, so that is out of the question. I don't think that the pub is particularly splendid that we want to keep it. What the big problem here is that, unlike the agent, the village is unsustainable. It's been recognized as being unsustainable. It's an unsustainable location. It may be close to Honiton. People have to use cars to get to the doctor's surgery, to get to the shops, to get to anything. The only thing that you have there is a primary school. We consider, or at least I consider, I know Colin Brown considers, that this, if you're going to put in 5 houses or 5 dwellings in there, it's going to be too much. Take in also the cars, and the agents show that it is filling in too much because they propose 3-story buildings. When I suggested 3-story buildings in this committee and a few years back about planning applications, I was poo-pooed because we do not do such thing in East Devon. But of course, that is a reserved matter, so we're not going to dwell on it. But the site is simply overdeveloped. And that is the opinion of the ward members and the parish council. And I think, considering the fact that you will need cars, and there's not going to be one, it's going to be 2 cars per dwelling, because people these days are not going to be happy just with the one. So I think this needs to come back for 3 dwellings, and then everybody will be happy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess we could refuse on the basis that we feel that 5 is too many for the site, and they could come back with a reduced number. Councillor Faithful, your question, please.
I'd just like to get clarification. Did you say that it's presently on the market for 395? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
it's on their website for sale, 395.
395 for a pub. Are you interested, Peter? Really? Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. In that case, we can go into debate. Councillor Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. So I did check, and that's the figure I found, 395, and I just wanted to check that it's still actively at that price. So I did a search on pubs for sale across Devon, and there was quite a considerable number of pubs, better presented, better located, for 250. And to my mind, at present, that pub has not been properly marketed at its market value. To my mind, it's worth about half what they've put it on the market for. So unless it goes back for 195 on the open market for 12 months, I don't feel it's been properly marketed. So on that basis, I would like to refuse on that one basis. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I might come back to you for a proposal, Peter, but we'll hear a few more speakers first.
Yeah.
Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. It seems to be a day for disagreeing with officers. I've got a problem. I went out there and had a look at this site. I mean, the back bit is really narrow, very long. So fair enough, you can see where they're going to squeeze the cars in up there. And I know this is outlined. But my real problem is that road. It's a busy road. We heard earlier, worried about the fans. Half a kilometre away from a building, whatever is going to keep people away. This is right on the road. You know, the front door opens right onto this main road. And although it's supposed to be 30 miles an hour, you know, it's a good 30 miles an hour. And I just think, you know, what are we building? Well, what are you basically saying to people? I suppose they're going to be affordable, But you're basically saying to people, you've got to live in a really noisy place, right by a main road. And yeah, I suppose the houses will be cheaper. Maybe double glazing, this, that, and the other. But again, we're supposed to be building. What's our thing? Build good homes in good areas. Well, these aren't going to be. These are going to be in a horrible area, right on a main road. The ones at the back, again, 3 stories high. It is. There are bungalows around there. And I know it's only outline, but again, if you want to squeeze 2 houses in there, they're going to have to be 3 stories high because it's so narrow there. I mean, I know we can see on a plan, or it fits, but sometimes you look at plans when it actually comes to it, you can't fit them in. And I do think that you're going to be pressed, certainly, to have actually separated houses there, detached houses. So I must admit, I will listen to other people, but I am not happy about saying yes, just because there's a pub on the site there. That's totally different than actually having to live right by. I've lived by a main road, and it's just not pleasant. And I wasn't that close to the main road. I was set back a little bit. But I just wonder, is this the right thing to build in that area?
Okay, thank you. Mind you, being on a main road might not be to your taste and mine, but sometimes people see that as an advantage because they can get straight onto the road. So I think if we start thinking about location of houses based on being on a busy road, we're going to really start limiting ourselves. Anyway, it's a fair point, Ian. Councillor Collins, is this a question? Oh, I think we are actually. I'm losing the plot.
Thank you. Having listened to obviously everything we've listened to so far, I think I would probably be inclined to agree that 5 is probably an overdevelopment of the site, given sort of how narrow it is towards the back of the site. And I wonder if, I know it's outlined, if potentially one house at the back there would be better in terms of the spacing and would allow for the houses towards the front of the site to be set back slightly off the road. But I think I'd be inclined to agree with the ward members that actually 5 is probably too many. And I would be suggesting potentially refusing this based on that.
Okay.
Chair.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask Gareth, if we approved this for up to 5 houses and an application for 5 houses subsequently came back, we could still argue it's overdevelopment of the site? No.
No,
No.
that's your chance gone.
If we've permitted that for 5, they can build up to 5. Okay, I was just wanted to clarify that one. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, did I see any other hands up?
Yeah.
Yep. Councillor Ragg.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Gareth, is he picking up on Councillor Faithfull's point? Are officers satisfied that the property has been marketed for a year or more at the market value price, please?
Yeah, I mean, it's been on the market since the 1st of June 2023, and we've had no evidence to dispute that or have called to dispute that I've seen. So they did the marketing. There was a poor response to that. As I say, there was only 4 visits to that. The way that they run it, as per the report, there was incentives and a flexible approach, which didn't help during COVID by the looks of it. The size and the condition of the building internally as well is cost prohibitive. And there's also alternative pubs with high competition and a supply of country pubs, which are forming quite stringent competition, which has not helped the business model that the Honiton Inn was running. And therefore, we don't think there's substantial harm resulting from its loss. We were talking earlier about buildings as well being on the roadside. There's no highway objection to this proposal. And when we're talking about harm, I just read from the NPPF to show you what the threshold is. So the NPPF, which is the government framework, says planning policies and decisions should Give substantial weight to the value of using suitable brownfield land within settlements for homes and other identified needs. Proposals for which should be approved unless substantial harm would be caused. So members need to be clear in their minds that any issues identified need to be substantial harm.
Yeah, just to clarify that the price was a competitive price, that it wasn't overpriced for sale.
I think because of the amount of land to the side and rear that went with it, and maybe there's a bit of hope value in terms of what could be done on that land too, that probably led to the price being what it is.
I guess it depends how much accommodation the pub offers as well. If you're basically buying a pub and a house, or a living accommodation, then maybe that makes a difference from whether you're just buying a pub with no accommodation. Okay, so officers are of the opinion that it was marketed at a reasonable price, and of course the asking price isn't necessarily what somebody might feel it's worth, and could come in with a lower value that perhaps more closely aligned with what they felt it was worth. And just a reminder from Gareth that we are talking about a brownfield site here, and therefore there's a higher presumption of development. Councillor Barlow.
Just one final question, Chair. I realise that if you pass this for five houses could go on there, but we can restrict the size. We can restrict the size of the houses, obviously, the height of the houses, that sort of thing, or not?
No, because they come under appearance and scale. So you'd have to consider that when they come in.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So we, even though there's going to be 5 houses on there, we could say no, 2 stories or 3 stories at the back is too much. You've got to go for 1 story.
Yeah, when you come to consider that at the next stage, yeah.
So the reserved matters stage, we can consider layout, size, etc. Yeah. Okay, do we have any more speakers? Okay, I think Councillor Faithful was indicating a willingness to make a proposal, but...
I did put my proposal, but I haven't had any response, and it seems to be rejected as a proposal. I don't know, you leave it open, but...
So can we have another proposal? Ian, I think you were just before Councillor Levine, so...
I'm reluctantly happy to propose this for the simple reason that it is a brownfield site. I think it's been very clearly, I think in reserved matters we will be able to say, no, you can't have 3 stories at the back, and hopefully the layout can be changed, although it is very narrow. So, yeah, that's my proposal as per officer recommendation.
Okay, so do we have a seconder for Ian's reluctant proposal? Councillor Bailey.
Second his proposal, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal to approve the recommendation. So all those, no, there's not an appropriate assessment this time. So approval with conditions is recommended. So all those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? And 2 abstentions.
So you voted for an abstention?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
2 abstentions then. Yeah, that's
Simon.
carried then, Chair.
Yes. Okay. So narrowly carried. So we've had an interesting morning, and I think you've earned your lunch. I think shall we come back at 2:30 to give you a bit of a breather? No, 25 minutes is too